Buenos dias. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to PowerUp Latinx Business Summit 4.0. Bienvenidos a todos. I welcome everyone this morning to this powerful event. On behalf of Amplify Latinx leadership and staff, I want to extend my warm welcome to all of you joining us this morning. I am Rosario Viera Minaya, Executive Director of Amplify Latinx, and I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to share this space with you and together celebrate the collective work we've been doing to support economic opportunity for Latinx community. To address widespread economic opportunity gaps, Amplify Latinx launched the PowerUp Latinx Business Initiative in 2018. PowerUp is a first of its kind Latino-led collaborative focused on activating Massachusetts' untapped economic potential by increasing growth and economic opportunity for Latino-owned businesses. Our work directly supports providing technical assistance and fostering network building to strengthen skills and relationships, increasing access to capital, and opening access to markets and customers, including work that prioritizes transparency and increase government contracting opportunities for business of color. Throughout this past year, we were able to develop and strengthen an incredible set of partnerships and coalitions. We work closely together with the Latino business owners and entrepreneurs who are the engine of our local economy. We did this through the Business Resiliency Program and helped Latinx-owned businesses to develop capital readiness strategies and digital transformation plans. We thank leaders like Secretary Kennelly and Larry Andrews from Mass Growth Capital for their support and leadership. We continue advocating for equitable small business funding and technical assistance, diversity in state procurement practices, and changes to Boston's contracting practices to level the playing field for Black and Brown businesses in Boston and beyond. As founding members of the Coalition for Equitable Economy, we have collectively advocated for the $1 billion ARFA funding for small businesses. Through Latino-owned businesses have been disproportionately impacted by COVID pandemic and ensuing economic crisis. As the fastest growing business segment and talent base, Latinos are still the vital sector and group to the post-COVID economic recovery. Today, we'll have a chance to be inspired by Latinx entrepreneurs and business owners, listen to our data presenters, and connect with advocates, policymakers, and coalition partners who have been at the forefront by providing technical support to our small businesses. We will also be introduced to the concept of solidarity economy by Dr. Manuel Pastor to learn how the entire Massachusetts business community can play a role in advancing Latinx business growth and innovation to power a truly inclusive economy. I am so ready for this morning, and I hope you are too. Now, I'd like to invite Joanna, one of our AV techs today, to give us some housekeeping pointers.
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's program. I'll be one of your AV techs this morning, and we are here to make sure that you have a great virtual experience. Before we begin, I would like to go over a few features we'll be using during today's program. First, at the bottom of your screen, you will see a number of different buttons that we'll be using to the phone icon. All attendees are muted at this time by design. As a reminder, if you are presenting today as a speaker, please make sure to mute after you're done speaking. All right, we encourage you to use the chat feature. Our AV support team is here to make sure that you have a great experience. As we said before, if you have any technical issues, you can click on this chat box, open it up. Automatically, you can send messages to everyone. Everyone is selected, but you can change that to AV Tech 1 or 2 if you have any questions or issues. Otherwise, you can just type messages to each other. It's fine. We do encourage you to keep your videos on. It always enriches the experience to be able to see each other and for the speakers to see you, to see the audience. You can do that by clicking on the Start Video icon. Throughout the program, you will have the option too of giving us your thumbs up, any visual reactions you want to give us or give the speakers. You can find that in the reactions icon also at the bottom of your screen. And there will be a point when we have 4 simultaneous programs going at the same time in our breakout rooms. We will give you some more detailed instructions at that time, but when the time comes, just click on the breakout rooms icon. There will be a list of the different rooms and you can click join to join those breakout rooms. All right, I think that's all the reminders we have for now. Back to you, Michelle.
Buenos dias. Thank you, Joanna. I will be the MC for today, and we're going to be joined by wonderful thought leaders, business leaders in our community. To tell you a little bit about myself, I am the founder of Good News Movement, and Good News Movement is basically a platform dedicated to sharing only good news. We have 3 million followers, and it was born out of the need of getting frustrated at not seeing enough good news on TV. So I decided, let me put it in my own hands and create my own platform where I get good news from everywhere around the world. And I'm thrilled to be here with everyone today. We're going to hear from speakers that represent the best in the Latino community. There'll be Latino entrepreneurs, investors, and business leaders innovating in key industries. And we'll also learn about how the Massachusetts business community can play a key role in advancing Latinx business growth and innovation. And that fuels new jobs. That's so important as we come out of this pandemic and difficult time. So the plan for today is that we'll start off, we'll set the stage with a data presentation, which will talk about the state of Latino entrepreneurs and the Latino GDP. And then you'll hear from keynote speakers from inspiring entrepreneurs, and we'll go deeper into breakout sessions. And I want to let everyone know that during the course of this, feel free to share your quotes, impressions, feedback. Our hashtags for today are PowerUp Summit, PowerUp Latinx Biz, and Amplify Latinx. And please feel free to look at those. They're pasted in the chat, and tag Amplify Latinx. And now to start our program, finally, it is my pleasure to invite our first guest speaker for today, Lieutenant Governor Karen Pulido. Welcome, Lieutenant Governor.
Hi, everyone. I'm Karen Pulido, Lieutenant Governor. Thank you, Rosario and Amplify Latinx, for having me here today at the PowerUp 4.0 Latinx Business Summit. This event is an important opportunity to explore the impact of the Latinx small business community on our local economy and how we can move forward together toward an equitable recovery. There is no question that communities of color have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, and that COVID-19 has exacerbated existing inequities nationwide and here in the Commonwealth. Last year, our administration launched a small business recovery grant program through the Massachusetts Growth Capital Corporation. This program distributed over $700 million and specifically focused on helping women and minority-owned businesses in Massachusetts. Now, we are looking ahead to ensuring equity in our continuing economic recovery. To help examine how COVID-19 has affected workers, employers, and work habits in Massachusetts, our administration commissioned a report called The Future of Work, on the future of work earlier this year. This report is driving our continued work around housing policy, transportation, workforce development, and beyond, and key findings show that existing inequities in the workforce will continue. Changes in our economic landscape will require significant workforce training to connect workers with the skills they need for our future economy. Within the next decade, 300 to 400,000 workers in Massachusetts per year will need training to respond to shifts in job availability and meet the needs of employers in high-growth industries like education, healthcare, advanced manufacturing, IT, and the trades. To support that critical need, we're working with our legislative colleagues to invest a portion of the $5.3 billion in funds that Massachusetts received from the ARPA, the Rescue Plan Act, into urgent priorities like workforce training. The proposal our administration laid out earlier this year included $240 million to turbocharge job training programs throughout the Commonwealth to help people climb the economic ladder and help train 52,000 workers over 3 years. Additionally, Secretary Acosta and her team have developed a plan to scale up proven programs to begin meeting workforce needs, apprenticeships, workforce grants, ESOL, and the Career Technical Institute Initiative are just a few of the existing options that train the unemployed and underemployed for good quality, higher paying, in-demand jobs. When we train and upskill the unemployed and underemployed, we move toward a more equitable recovery for communities of color, helping to bridge the opportunity and workforce gaps that persist in our economy. Investing in our workforce is critical to our Commonwealth's equitable recovery, as well as to supporting the well-being and financial security of families and communities statewide. Thank you to each and every one of you for your continued support and partnership as Massachusetts recovers from COVID-19. We are well positioned as we emerge from the pandemic. However, ongoing collaboration in areas like equity and workforce development is critical to the success of our Commonwealth and our residents. Enjoy the forum, and thank you for all that you do on behalf of the Latino community in Massachusetts and beyond.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for those encouraging remarks. And now we'd like to give a warm welcome to Jennifer Garcia, COO of the Latino Business Action Network at the Stanford Latino Entrepreneurship Initiative, to share with us the state of the Latino entrepreneurs. Welcome, Jennifer.
Well, good morning and greetings from the West Coast. It's early here, so I'm sure you guys are having your mid-breakfast out in the East Coast. It's a pleasure to be with you. My job today is to set the stage. I want you to walk away informed about Latino entrepreneurship, about the trends, the impact that Latinos have on the U.S. economy, the challenges they face, and certainly the opportunities that Latinos face and the opportunity that's before all of us in this room. A little bit about me. Yes, Jennifer Garcia. I serve as the Chief Operating Officer for an organization called Latino Business Action Network, also known as LBAN. We are a nonprofit with a mission to strengthen the United States by improving the lives of Latinos. And our focus is specifically in Latino entrepreneurship. That is our focus, that is our area of expertise. How do we do it? We collaborate with Stanford University on 3 specific initiatives. It is research, education, and ecosystem development. So we produce the most robust research on Latino entrepreneurs. It is our hopes that our research reports influence the work of not only our organization, but it's also leveraged by policymakers, by government and corporate leaders. On the education side, we facilitate a scaling program at the Stanford Graduate School of Business. This scaling program is designed for Latino entrepreneurs. It's an 8-week online program that has transformed hundreds of businesses across the country. And finally, our third pillar is ecosystem development. We began with our alumni that have participated in our scaling program, a network of mentors, a network of capital providers, and we work together to provide ongoing business support and growth pathways for entrepreneurs. All right, so let's get into what does the landscape today look like for Latino-owned businesses. They are certainly the drivers of new businesses. In 2017, Latinos were responsible for 13% of all small businesses across the country. So you may already know that Latinos are extremely innovative and entrepreneurial. They are 1.7 times more likely to start businesses than any other racial group. What that tells us is that we could assume with some confidence that the percentage of Latino-owned businesses will continue to grow throughout the years to come. So not only are Latinos creating businesses, right? They are the fuel for our economic engine. I think Rosario said that earlier. They are fueling the economic engine in the US. Of all small businesses that were created in the timeframe of 2007 to 2017, Latinos were responsible for creating 50% of those jobs, 50% of those businesses. And it's important to know that these new businesses were not only solopreneurs, right? They're not only the one man, one woman shop, but they were employer-based companies. So that tells us that not only are Latinos creating businesses, but they are also creating jobs. Employment amongst Latino-owned businesses grew 2 times faster than non-Latino-owned businesses in the timeframe of 2014 to 2016. So we are contributing to job creation and business formation. In addition to starting businesses faster than the national average, Latinos are also outpacing the growth rate in many states. The average growth rate was about 6% between 2012 and 2018. That's the national average. So you could see by this map that Latinos outpaced the national growth rate in many states. Certainly we're aware and familiar with the hubs, with the Latino hubs that you might see: California, Florida, Texas, New York, tri-state area. But based on this map, you can see that we are seeing growing trends across the country where Latino-owned businesses are outpacing the national average for growth. Now, I want to dive even a little bit further into the industry segmentation. This chart shows that industries represented by Latino-owned businesses. So the size of the blue dot corresponds to the number of employer-based businesses. Again, I want to stress the employer-based because that means they are companies that are employing and creating jobs. So the blue dot represents the number of employer-based companies. So you can see, as an example, construction is a large industry for Latinos. Now, all dots above this trend line are showing a greater than the average growth rate for that industry. You can see majority of these dots are above this trend line. So what does that mean? It means that Latino-owned businesses are performing in virtually all industries. Now, there is certainly an opportunity to distill a perception that Latino-owned businesses are risky businesses, right? Risky companies. Well, our research has showed that Latinos are growing in annual revenue at a faster pace than white-owned businesses, and that's at a rate of 10% to 7%. So their annual revenue growth is outpacing white-owned businesses. In addition, we can talk about their credit score. They are 11% more likely to have a business credit score above 680. And just to give you a sense, obviously it's dependent on some institutions, but 570, a score of 570 is considered that they are less likely to miss payments. So we see that our Latino-owned businesses are 11% more likely to have a credit score above 680. Now, all of this is fantastic information. Latinos are credited for growth in the recovery of our economy during the Great Recession. Latinos are the fastest growing business segment, and they are projected to continue to drive small business creation and job creation in the years to come. But despite all this, we still see that challenges remain. Many challenges, but for the purposes of today's presentation, I want to highlight 3 of those challenges. The first is a scaling above $1 million, and we'll talk more about that. There's access to debt financing and access to equity investments. There are several things that happen at the 1 million revenue mark. While we are creating jobs faster, while we are creating businesses at a faster pace, only 3% of Latino-owned businesses ever reach $1 million or greater. So our representation in this circle, in this segment, is significant. We see a significant drop off. What also happens at this is that Latino-owned businesses face a steep drop off in their odds of profitability when they reach that $1 million mark. It is at this mark that they typically struggle with cash flow, right? Businesses begin to struggle with cash flow. They require an infusion of capital to grow. And unfortunately, it's at this period where they experience greater barriers to accessing capital. or they only have access to high costs of capital, such as predatory lenders, and therefore it's impacting their profitability. So this 1 million mark for Latino-owned businesses is a crucial mark. And what we're seeing is that we lose representation and profitability begins to drop off. Now, for the few businesses that overcome those barriers, and you could see this by the bars on the far right-hand side, those that overcome the barriers that break through to the $5 million mark, they have a tremendous growth rate, almost doubling the rate of white-owned businesses. And again, that graph depicts it on the far right-hand side. This is why this $1 million revenue is extremely important for Latino-owned businesses. Barrier of access to funding. This brings us to the challenge, right? We need to infuse capital and get them funded. When we look at debt finance, and Latinos are less likely to receive funding from national and local banks. And I mean, this graph shows it very clearly. And when they turn to banks or national banks for greater funding amounts, so those are amounts above 100,000, they are severely underfunded versus white businesses. Now let's pivot to equity. Equity investments such as angel investors, VC, private equity, all of those sources of funding is a critical enabler for growth and the success of businesses. But again, unfortunately, Latinos are grossly underrepresented in the landscape of equity investments. Crunch-based data reported that less than 2% of seed, early, and late-stage capital goes to Latino-owned businesses. Now, what you're looking at in this graph, it shows the investments at different stages, and the faint red line represents Latino businesses. The other thing to know in regards to equity, access to equity funding, is the businesses that have successfully secured funding from equity providers, they have twice the number of investors of white-owned businesses. So that means that every institution, every individual that is investing in a Latino-owned business is investing at a lower rate, at a lower level than what they would have for a white-owned business. Okay, let's change the theme here. Certainly, there was a lot said, but there is still amazing opportunities that exist for Latino-owned businesses and opportunities that exist for all of us in this room. Currently far too much money is being left on the table, and there is a real opportunity for investors, opportunity for organizations supporting small businesses, and opportunity for entrepreneurs themselves. So let's go into what are these opportunities. The first one is the investment opportunity. Funding Latino-owned businesses has the potential to provide greater returns for capital providers, both debt and equity alike. We already distilled the conception of riskier businesses or not as profitable businesses, right? Latino-owned businesses should be an attractive investment opportunity for institutional investments across the spectrum, including banks, CDFIs, VCs, PE, private equity, etc. And it is our hope that our full report really causes capital providers to reevaluate their processes of how they're serving, how they're pursuing Latino-owned businesses. The economic opportunity is not just for Latinos. Let me just say that again. It is not just for Latinos, but the economic opportunity is for our entire country. If we as a country were successful in equitably funding and scaling Latino-owned businesses to the size of the national average, not so that they outperform, not so that they do better, but just the national average, what would happen is that Latinos would generate an additional 1.4 trillion to the U.S. economy today, 1.4 trillion. Now, if we look into the future, what that would mean by 2030 is that Latino-owned businesses would generate an additional 3.3 trillion. This is the single biggest economic opportunity for all of us, for the United States. Now, let's talk about the support opportunity. One of the elements that has made LBAN extremely effective in our work with entrepreneurs is network and mentorship. It is vital for entrepreneurs to be part of a professional network and to be mentored. So my extension, the opportunity that I extend to all of you, the invitation that I extend to all of you, if you are a small business owner, if you know a small business owner, or if your organization serves small businesses, you need to ask them, who is mentoring you and what professional networks are you part of? It really is critical that they are part of an ecosystem of ongoing access to mentors and to networks. And I want to close by just sharing a quick story that highlights and underscores the power of a network and a mentorship. We had an entrepreneur participating in the Stanford Scaling Program, and they were consuming the curriculum, but they didn't have the know-how or perhaps the time of how to apply the concepts that they were learning into their company. And so what they did is, working with their mentor, one specific theme that they were working on is their hiring process. So in working with their mentor, they defined the values of the company. They defined a recruitment process, an interview process, and that allowed them to identify candidates that aligned with the values of their company. And it has transformed not only their hiring process, but has had a significant impact in their retention. That's just one small story of hundreds of entrepreneurs that have gone through our program that have leveraged a mentor and has transformed their processes and their procedures. So I encourage all of you to really think about the support opportunity that you have in serving small businesses and really challenging them. Who's mentoring you and what networks are you part of? Happy to be a resource in any way possible. And finally, I'm just going to say thank you. And I want to close with two other invitations. We have our research forum. So if you loved what you heard today about all of this research, we have our research forum happening on January 28th at Stanford University. And if you are a small business owner and interested in the Stanford Scaling Program, that will start in May, and we extend an invitation for you to apply as well. So thank you, Michelle, and over to you.
All right, great presentation, Jennifer. And I totally agree that it's also an opportunity. I recently featured a story of two coffee shops, and the coffee shop owner of coffee shop A, they got sick and the competitor actually stepped in to help. So it's also an opportunity, you know, look for mentors, look for networks, but just also ask for help when you need it. That's one thing I've learned that's very important. And once you ask for it, people just, you know, pour in, people want to help. That's our nature. And getting back to the program, we'd like to now invite Mary Frances Rivera, president of Mass Budget, a public policy think tank researching and advocating for racial and social justice here in Massachusetts, to share a framework on delivering on equity in the Commonwealth. Take it away, Mary Frances.
Hi, good morning. Can everybody hear me okay? Good. Good morning. Thank you, Rosario and Jennifer. That was fantastic. It was really in-depth, and I'm glad that I'm straddled by the West Coast on both sides right now. So you and Dr. Pastor. So I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody see my screen? Thumbs up. Okay. So again, my name is Marie Frances Rivera. I am a proud member and ally, and not member, I am part of the Latinx community and Amplify Latinx, and just absolutely love everything that under Rosario's leadership, the conversations we've been able to have, and also the power that we've been able to build together. So I am going to share a little bit about an emerging collective, entrepreneurial of sorts, that I have been working on building out with some partners here in Massachusetts. And the purpose of what we're trying to do is to really demonstrate the power that we have in our Black communities, in the Latinx community in Massachusetts, and do that by really flexing our political and our policy muscle. So I'm going to share the framework that we've developed and that we're continuing to develop. And what we're calling it is Delivering on Equity in Massachusetts, Delivering on Equity Collective. So delivering on equity, what is it? So it is a combination of different strands of work. So, we believe that in order to, get the demands that we're asking for, some of the demands around, the big asks around equitable business funding in Massachusetts, that the Black and Latinx business community has, been pushing for, that we need to do a bunch of different things and do them in a way that's aligned. So this is the framework that we've come up with, and it has 4 elements to it. One element is, you saw how powerful Jennifer's research and analysis was. So in Massachusetts, we need to continue deepening the research and analysis and policy analysis that we're doing, and to ensure that it has an anti-racist lens. And so that's one very important part of the framework. Another part of the framework is, what Amplify has been doing, which is really around organizing community members, organizing community leaders in a deep way to really talk about these issues and to center them on the data, on the research, on the analysis. So that's part of it, and part of the work that I feel like we all do every day. An additional component to really building the power systematically in our communities to push for these big changes that we're asking for is to use data to turn out the vote, and to know, where are the pockets of Latinx power in Massachusetts that maybe are untapped right now, and how are we systematically collecting data on voters that might be with us on certain issues, so that we know, let's go to Lawrence, let's go to this part of Lowell, et cetera, because we know that these folks are going to be with us as we're doing advocacy, as we're, working to turn out the vote. So that's another component. And then the 4th component of it is what we, Amplify Latinx, what we're all trying to do is to really transform the narrative, and to, start with the values that really center us, the values around, we want to improve the well-being of our families. We want to strengthen our businesses. Those are the values. And also not to shy away from the problem statement. In Massachusetts, 1/4 of Latinx folks are living in poverty right now. And, we can't shy away from being upfront about some of the issues that exist in our communities, and also collectively coming up with solutions, and then making sure that we have actions to back it up. So that's a bit of our framework. And, as we do this work and continue to do this work together, I think something that we don't put front and center, in a verbal way, I guess, is that we need trust amongst all of us in order to do this work together, and that we also need more capacity to do this work. And that's, some of our values that are really centering and grounding this collective that we're bringing together. And that we not only need to build trust, we not only need to increase our capacity, whether that's, funding for nonprofits, whether that's funding for businesses, but we also need to align ourselves more strategically. So those are some of the values. And I know I don't have too much time, so I'm trying to keep it really condensed here, but I just wanted to showcase some of the partners that we have at the table, some of the seed partners that we have at the table doing this, multi-pronged work to really strengthen civic engagement and power building here in Massachusetts. So we have the voter table, which I'm sure some of you are maybe familiar with, who are real experts around engaging voters, using data systems in order to strengthen how we reach out to folks in community. The Massachusetts Budget and Policy Center, which I'm the president of, we do research and advocacy. We also are continuing to strengthen our communications capacity so that we're really able to get the message out and to shift whether it's an elected official or a person out in the community. And, a big component of this work are, organizations that are doing hyperlocal organizing and statewide organizations that are supporting that hyperlocal organizing. So the Massachusetts Communities Action Network is a very strong partner of ours, which has hubs around and affiliates around the state that are doing faith-based organizing work in communities of color like Brockton, New Bedford, and others. And we were very fortunate that the Schott Foundation came in and helped us with some donor engagement and capacity building as well. And so why are we doing this? Because we still haven't been able to move forward some of the big policy demands that we've been asking for, whether it's $1 billion for Black and Latinx owned businesses, whether it's more money for schools, we still haven't been able to get that done. So what are innovative approaches that we can work together and build trust and build capacity in order to build the power that we need to shift our demands? And I wanted to share this one stat with you all just to kind of illustrate it in this context, which is earlier this fall, there was a 52-page report that was released by the Massachusetts Office of Supplier Diversity. And it showed that state agencies spent almost $5 billion last year, to have businesses support the work that we do for the public good. And that Hispanic-owned firms only saw about $11.5 million in those contracts. So we have a lot of work to do to build the power that we need to make sure that through public dollars that Latinx businesses are also getting, the support and the investment in capital that we need in our communities. So just a bit of kind of the phases of our work. Like I said, this is an emergent collective, but what we're doing now is really trying to invest and engage philanthropy in building the civic infrastructure. So that means making sure that we have organizers and folks out there in communities talking to folks. We're also trying to do deep leadership development around political and policy education. And with the hope, and we're also going into a deep planning phase at the beginning of 2022 as well. And with the hope of building a stronger shared equity agenda, policy agenda for Massachusetts that includes demands of Latinx businesses, that includes demands of, Puerto Rican moms in New Bedford, and that we're able to really move forward to build systems and to build structures that really create a more inclusive democracy here in the state. So I'm going to leave it there. But thank you all. I look forward to learning more about what Dr. Manuel Pastor, somebody who I very much admire, has to share. And thank you very much. I appreciate all of you.
Thank you, Mary Frances. Now it is my distinct honor to welcome our keynote speaker, Professor Manuel Pastor. Dr. Pastor is a distinguished professor of sociology and American studies and ethnicity at the University of Southern California. He currently directs the U.S Equity Research Institute and the Center for Immigrant Integration. He is the Turpangian Chair in Civil Society and Social Change at USC and holds an economics PhD from the University of Massachusetts Amherst. Dr. Pastor's research has generally focused on issues of economic, environmental, and social conditions facing low-income urban communities and the social movements seeking to change those realities. He currently serves on the California Governor Gavin Newsom's Council on Economic Advisors and on the California Business and Jobs Recovery Task Force. That's a mouthful, but I got through it. In 2012, he received the Liberty Hill Foundation's Wally Marks Changemaker of the Year Award for Social Justice Research Partnership. And in 2017, he was awarded the Champion for Equity Award from Advancement Project California. And now, with no further ado, welcome Dr. Pastor.
Great, I'm so glad to be with you this morning. And Marie Frances, I'm glad to be the other half of the California sandwich. Greeting you. So pretty early out here, but pretty enthusiastic to be with you. I'm going to go ahead and put a screen up and then pop into that screen the PowerPoint. And Michelle, can you nod if you're seeing the PowerPoint? Perfect.
Yes.
Okay, so glad to be with you. This is actually a mural from Holyoke, and I decided to put it there because even though I'm not with you in person, I'm with you in spirit. And I actually spent 5 years living in Northampton while I got my PhD at UMass Amherst. And then I moved back to California and kept calling my friends on the East Coast saying, during the winter, I am shoveling sun out of my driveway. What are you doing? Lost a lot of friends with that statement, but let me get to what I want to talk about. Before I speak, I always like to let people know that while I'm talking, my voice might tire or break, and you might think that it's because I'm emotional being with such a great group, Amplify Latinx. I'm sure it's that, but it's also that I have a speech condition called spasmodic dysphonia that gets treated, which causes your voice to break or tire. And I always let people know that it gets treated, this is true, once a month with Botox, because that's how we treat everything in Los Angeles. It totally works for us. We like to be well preserved. So I want to basically start by thinking about the moment that we're in. We have been through 20 months of a tremendous shock to our system from the public health crisis that is COVID. But we've also begun to realize that COVID was the disease that revealed our illnesses. The racial wealth gap, which meant that some populations didn't have a personal safety net cushion upon which they could fall. The lack of legal status for so many undocumented Americans, which meant that they and their families were cut out from aid. Inadequate access to healthcare, which is responsible for this nationwide figure of Black folks dying from COVID at 1.4 times the rate of white folks. And when you try to age adjust that, as we've done with the data for Los Angeles County, and understanding that Latinos, because they are younger, would be less likely to die. But if you age adjust, you can see that the Latino death rate is 3 times what it is for non-Hispanic whites. So this is a disease that revealed our illness. At the same time, it illustrated our mutuality. As the disease broke out, there were soup kitchens, mutual aid societies that sprung up, and many of us wore masks, not just to protect ourselves, but to protect the other people in our lives. But just as a disaster attracts people who come to the rescue, it can also attract price gougers and those who seek to profit from division. And so the COVID crisis has also revealed deep ideological schisms in our society. And of course, the differences around thinking about racial equity, which were revealed by the reaction to the murder of George Floyd and the summer of protests that unfolded. So I want to suggest to you, in a deep moment of change and reckoning. It is probably inaccurate to think of this as just one other year, one other moment, because the COVID crisis came and was accompanied quite quickly, as I mentioned, by the murder of George Floyd and the deep thinking about structural racism, the understanding that racist policing might be the tip of a racist iceberg of unequal opportunities with regard to education, the economy, and the environment. And it came on 4 years of a Trump administration really brutalizing the public discourse, trafficking in xenophobia, fanning the flames of polarization and division. And in this deep moment of change, which is going on, some see disruption and worry about a world slipping away. Some who are in this audience might be quite enthusiastic about the idea of challenging anti-Black racism and understanding how that impacts Latinos as well. But others worry about a world that is slipping away. And while they believe that, many of us also see the possibility that things could transform in this moment, and that a world might be born that could be quite different. And what I really want to do with you today, and it gets to the thing that Marie Francis was talking about narrative, is to stretch your imagination, to deploy some radical imagination to understand the deep moment we're in. Because there, in this moment, is no going back to a normal where so many communities were left behind and kept behind. When you look at just that last statistic about the spending of the state on contracts and such a small share of that money going to Hispanic-owned businesses, why would you want to recover to that normal? When you look at the data that Jennifer Garcia was presenting about how much more could be generated in our economy if Latino-owned businesses were fully given opportunities with regard to contracting and financing, et cetera, why would you want to recover to what we had before? Don't we want to challenge ourselves to go someplace different? And I would suggest that we are in a moment just like that. You know, if you read the business press and like me, get called by business reporters, you're hearing the words, the Great Resignation. And what they mean by the Great Resignation is people not wanting to come back to work or the quit rates being very high. But what's going on there? Because if you think about the data, we are in an economy that's 4 million jobs short of where it was in 2019. That's not the kind of economy you would normally imagine people walking away from work. Why are they walking away? Because they've just been through an existential crisis. And they're asking the question, what do I deserve for work in terms of pay, in terms of hours, and in terms of treatment? It is not a great resignation. It is a great awakening. It is a great rebellion, and it could spell the moment of a great recalibration, a great rethinking about the meaning of work, the importance of inclusion, and the role of government. And so I really want you to understand the big moment that we're in, and I'll be coming back to that. I also want to contextualize that this big moment is not something that just sprung up as a result of COVID. It's been coming for a while. It's been coming because of the changing demographics of the United States. As many of you know, the U.S. is predicted to become majority people of color by the year 2043, 2044, happening in some states faster than others. In California, that happened in 1998. And when most people see those statistics, they think that what's driving those statistics is immigration. And certainly that's what a lot of the political heat has been about. But if you actually follow the data, remember that Marie Francis talked about the need to combine policy analysis, community engagement, data-driven work, and narrative. If you follow the data, what you'll realize is that immigration into the country has actually been slowing down dramatically, that undocumented immigrants in particular have fallen, and that there's actually deep concern amongst demographers and economists that we won't have more immigrants in the future. So what is driving that demographic change? It's not so much immigrants as it is children. This is the change in the U.S. youth population by ethnicity between 2000 and 2018. And you'll see that the number of young whites actually in the country declined by 7 million. Now, I always like to reassure audiences that does not mean that 7 million young white people died. We would have noticed that. There would have been a shortage of hipsters. It would have been a real crisis for coffee shops. What that means is that there's more whites graduating into 19 and 20 than entering into 0 and 1. And so the number of young whites is declining. Where is that growth occurring? Well, it looks like a decline in the number of young Black folks, but that's really because many young Black folks are re-identifying as mixed. And there's a big increase in the number of young Latinos and young Asian Pacific Islanders. Diversity is our future. But one of the things about that future is the way that people look at it is different. This is one of my favorite statistics about demography, and it's about the median age of different populations. Median means in the middle, so median age means half older, half younger. If you look at the United States, the median age for white folks is about 43, slightly older in Massachusetts, Asian Pacific Islanders, Black population slightly younger, Native Americans about the same as Black folks nationally. You haven't, the Native Americans in Massachusetts are an older group, but it's a quite small group. But the thing you're going to notice is that the median age for Latinos is 28. So the median age for Massachusetts white folks, 44, Massachusetts Latinos, 28. Check my math, but that's 16 years. That's a generation gap. And what that means is you've got an older generation looking at a younger generation and not seeing itself. And that has political consequences in terms of people's willingness to spend on, for example, educating our youth. We did a study looking at states and counties where the racial generation gap was the biggest, and where it was, the spending per capita on students was the lowest. So that issue of community organizing, community engagement, and bridge building across race, across age, across geography, absolutely critical. Now, all of this is occurring just as there's tremendous inequality in the United States, with the 1% dramatically running away from the rest of us. That's the blue line here, showing you the share of income going to the top 1%. And you can see the dramatic increase since the 1980s, the period in which the Reagan administration launched the experiment in the kind of trickle-down neoliberal economics that has been our standard economics until this moment. And you can see that what it's done is helped to drive income toward the wealthy. What has it meant in terms of income inequality by race? This is the share of full-time workers making less than $15 an hour in Massachusetts. And the first chart is for 1990. Why am I showing you such old data? It's not because I'm an old academic. I'm about to make a point. So this is the share of workers in today's dollars in 1990 making less than $15 an hour. You can see big disparities by gender and certainly by ethnicity. We would hope that as we moved into the year 2019, what would have happened? That those disparities would actually have been reduced. Not so. Those disparities have continued to be there, and you can see the large share of folks making less than $15 an hour. The immediate explanation for that usually is that what's going on is that we've got young populations of color that are less educated and so fare less well in the labor market. That is part of the story. And it's an important part of the story. And believe me, I believe in education. I have to. I'm a professor. I want you to send your kids to my college and pay the very high tuition that we charge. But it's not just education, because if you look in Massachusetts by levels of education and by race, the gray bars here are white folks. You can see that at each and every level of education, Black and Latino workers make less than white folks. So it's more than education, it's discrimination that's built into our labor markets. So how do we get out of this? One of the ways that I think is important is through policy, but another important thing is, as Marie Francis mentioned, through narrative. And the narrative that we've been developing, the new economic story, is something that we call solidarity economics. Solidarity economics, I will tell you about in just a second, but we have a brand new book, Solidarity Economics, which just came out this week, and which, in solidarity with our readers, if you go to our website, solidarityeconomics.org, and maybe someone can put that in the chat, solidarityeconomics.org. In solidarity with our readers, you can actually download a free copy. Some of you may want the feel of paper, some of you may want a PDF. Either way, read the book. Now, if you've ever written a book, it's a wonderful thing to get your copy and hold it in your hand. But the frustrating thing when you're done is you realize that you could have said really the whole book in 3 big points. So I'm going to save you a little bit of time and tell you the 3 big points. And it's totally about narrative. And Marie Francis, I hope that you all in the Mass Budget Policy Project pick up on some of these themes. The first is we need to stop talking about the economy and always talk about our economy. The economy is not something given to us by God or nature or markets being somehow the rules of nature. We build our economy by the rules that we set the power that we deploy, the regulations that exist, the businesses that we patronize, and who we help grow. We need to always say our economy and not the economy. Second big thing is that we need to realize that mutuality drives our economy, and mutuality, inclusion, and fairness can generate prosperity. When you think about it, the kind of businesses that are successful, probably the ones that are listening in, are the kinds of businesses, if they want to be successful in the long run, that treat their customers right, treat their workers right, treat their suppliers right. And when they deploy that sense of fairness and mutuality, that business is more successful. We have done research looking at metropolitan regions, and those regions, it's in that book, Equity, Growth, and Community, those regions that are more equal, that are less residentially segregated and less fragmented, actually grow jobs more sustainably over time. Now, you might think, I bet that's the musings of a radical professor from California. They're just such hippies out there. But that finding has been also found in the research by that well-known left-leaning institution, the Federal Reserve. And it's been done at a country level by another well-known Marxist organization, the International Monetary Fund. So increasingly, we're beginning to realize something that you know. If you over-police and over-incarcerate, you're hurting people, but you're also throwing away talent. If you fail to legalize undocumented folks, you're hurting their families, but you're also hurting their ability to be entrepreneurs. When you shortchange the education of kids of color, you're hurting our productivity into the future. What we need to do is what Jennifer was doing, is own the equity argument and argue that equity and inclusion and fairness will contribute to our prosperity. We have the data, we have the research, we need to change the narrative. The final thing is that we need to realize that because some people do profit from the current constellation or set of arrangements, we need to challenge the existing power by engaging in social movements, engaging in community-based organizations and community engagement that can actually challenge power. If we do this, what we're going to understand, and I'm just going to jump to this last thing, is we're going to understand how strategies for inclusion are interconnected, that we do need to do worker organizing to improve outcomes for organizers. We need for workers. We need to create alternative businesses, the kinds of cooperatives that people usually mean when they talk about the solidarity economy, community land trusts, alternative vehicles for communities to own. We need, as part of the work, to use government regulation and government support to control against the abuses of businesses, but also to support business development in the ways that Jennifer and Marie Frances were talking about. Finally, we need to use market power. We need to use training to try to drive consumers to the businesses that are actually doing a better job by the environment, by their workers, by their communities. This is exactly, for example, the strategy of the Restaurant Opportunities Center, which has done worker organizing, organized cooperative, that is worker-owned restaurants, tried to get government to get rid of the sub-minimum wage for tipped workers, and tried to develop a program of high road restaurants to be able to get consumers to patronize and practice what we preach in terms of our politics around inclusion, and to make that part of our purchasing patterns as well. So I want to end on time, because that's what we need in this for this conference, and because it would make you really like me, because that's an unusual thing for an academic. What I want to end with is the following. As I said, I think we're in a transformative time where the actions we take will set the terrain for community, inclusion, justice, prosperity in the future. And the actions in this moment will require courage. There is a famous quote from Martin Luther King, which actually was something he borrowed from someone else. And that quote is that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. I always try to remind people that that may be true, but it takes some bending. And it is we who need to do the bending. In the other great moments of transition, something like the Great Depression, yes, we got a New Deal, but we also saw fascism arise in Europe. We are in a great transformational moment. I am hoping that the arc of the moral universe will bend toward justice, but I'm calling on you to join with others to do the bending. Part of that, of course, is reading my books, State of Resistance, which talks about California, in this new book, Solidarity Economics. It's been great to be with you today. I particularly want to thank Betty Francisco, my good friend, for bringing me into this great atmosphere.
Wow. Well, thank you, Dr. Pastor. I couldn't agree more with your message. And I'm always personally so inspired by the power of data to tell a story and, impact and create change. So thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lauren Blevins, and I am Manager of Strategic Projects for the Comcast RISE program. Comcast RISE stands for Representation, Investment, Strength, and Empowerment. And our program was created out of Comcast's commitment to supporting small business owners of color within the community. I encourage any of you who are small business owners of color, if you know a small business owner of color, definitely check out our website at www.comcastrise.com to learn more about our program and to apply for our applications. Our applications are currently open now through January 15th. And really amazing program. Thank you, Amplify Latinx, for including me today. And congratulations on all the really amazing work that you all are doing within the community. And now I want to take a minute to introduce our first set of entrepreneurs. We have Erasmo Nunez and Patricia Jorge, co-owners of Joy Empanadas, followed by Alvania Lopez, founder and CEO of Peachbox Company. Take it away, Erasmo and Patricia.
Okay, so thank you for inviting us. We really appreciate the opportunity to share our story. We opened Joy Empanadas November 5th of 2019, but the journey began several years before that, when Patricia one day came up to me and said that she wanted to sell empanadas.
So my mom worked at a salon, and the ladies while waiting to do their hair always complain about being hungry. So I decided one weekend to make empanadas so that my mom customer, while they're waiting, can eat.
So I remember the first weekend, Patricia took 20 empanadas and they sold out right away at the salon. She came back home and did 20 more and took them back out, and again, they sold out. My brother's wife also owned a salon, so we had asked her if Patricia can go in and sell some of her empanadas there. And to our surprise, she was kind of dealing with the same issues of her customers being hungry while they waited to get their hair done. So, one salon turned into two salons, and then eventually she started walking into barbershops, selling these empanadas, mechanic shops, and pretty much anywhere she can find a group of people. And before she knew it, she was doing about 100 to 150 empanadas a weekend.
Then my regular customers started asking me for juices and soda to complement the empanadas. So I started selling my empanadas with the juices and the soda. So,
hence how the logo kind of came about. We incorporated the juice and the empanada.
So a couple years later, I established a strong customer base, and I asked Erasmo to open a cafe.
At that point, I was like, whoa, a cafe. I mean, we had no idea or no experience in the restaurant industry. At that point, I was working at American Tower as a business account manager, and I kind of set some goals for her just to make sure that this was real. I had told her, can you do $800 selling empanadas a weekend? And she would come back with like $900. So It was kind of like a nudge or a message to me, saying, like, I'm serious about this. So at that point, I kind of just wanted to make sure also that if we turn this into a business, whether or not we can even, just pay the rent. So, it got to the point where, again, she was exceeding her goals, and, I believed in her passion, and we ended up using our personal money to start the construction. 80% into the project, we kind of ran out of money, and traditional banks weren't really interested in giving us any funding. We honestly didn't have any record of sales, and it was a new business. But through a friend, we heard about MCCI Community Investment Program, and we showed them our business plan and worked closely with Kristen and her team. And throughout the application process, they believed in the Joe Empanadas and what we were trying to create in the community of Lawrence. So once approved, we used the funds to complete the construction. And on November 5th, 2019 is when we opened Joe Empanadas. Customers immediately, we opened with the boom. Customers were excited. Her customer base came in, and right away we saw, great numbers as far as, our sales for such an early company. 4 months later, we ran into another obstacle when COVID hit. And as we all know, COVID shut down pretty much the entire world. And it hit many restaurants really strong. We witnessed many restaurants with over 10 years of experience shut down for good. So we were nervous about that. We ended up shutting down for quite some time. And thankfully, after 2 months, we were able to open back up with specific codes, in order to ensure the safety of our employees and our customers. And we noticed when we opened back up that our customer base came back even stronger. Delivery sales went through the roof. Uber Eats sales went through the roof. Online orders went through the roof. So we adapted to the new way of doing business. And we use our social media platform in order to communicate closely with our customers.
So now 2 years in, we've been doing extremely well, selling 2,000 empanadas a week, on top of juices and smoothies. And to talk a little bit about a little bit more of our success, we've had investors asking us to buy equity into our company already, which is flattering, but I think it's still too early for that. We've maxed out currently our capacity of our current location due to the volume of sales. We're currently looking for a production facility in order to supply 2 to 3 satellite locations that we're looking to open in different towns. We're proud to offer jobs to people in the community. We started with 2 employees, and now we are up to 10 employees and growing. So just to recap, don't let lack of money or current events stop you from taking a risk and starting a business. Create a business plan, find solutions when obstacles appear, and always stay motivated and positive. So thank you for inviting us. Again, our name is Erasmo Nunez. Patricia Jorge. And this is how we amplify.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Perfect. My name is Albania Lopez. I am the founder and CEO of Peachbox Co. 30 years ago, my parents decided to take a leap of faith and leave the Dominican Republic in search of their American dream. At the time, my father's dream was to one day own his own bodega. My mother's dream was to one day maybe own a lovely little flower shop. For me, my dream was just to see snow for the first time. But shortly after arriving, even as a little 5-year-old, I started to see at firsthand the many challenges that Hispanic families had to face in the United States. So I made it upon myself to make my parents proud and work as hard as possible as a way to try and pay back for many of their own sacrifices. So I was the first in my family to graduate college. I was also the first in my family to go the corporate route and secure what at the time seemed to be the perfect job, paid benefits, vacation, etc. 10 years after being in the corporate sector, I realized that perhaps that life no longer made me happy or fulfilled my true passion. So I started to question my long-term career goals and what I would possibly do. At the same time, my fiance was struggling and finding gifts for his clients. He's a realtor and always had the need for them. So myself, who as a little child always loved anything involving arts and crafts and made anything that I found my hands on into a thoughtful little gift, I decided to take this task upon myself and create the gifts for him. Shortly after starting to do this, my fiance came up with the idea of, hey, what if we turn this into a business? Many realtors out there, just as myself, struggle with the same problem, and you have a beautiful solution for it that you actually absolutely love. So that's when we put all of our ideas together, and we decided to create Peachbox Co. We started from our shed in our house, and are proud to share that now we are in our 300 square foot warehouse that we just moved into several weeks ago. We are now a team of 6 Latinos and growing. We plan to be over 10 during the holiday season. We ship worldwide, and we're very proud to share that this year we're going to be reaching $1 million. Our peach boxes are shipped around the world every day to bring joy, happiness, words of sympathy, or a simple thinking of you. During COVID, of course, just as many other businesses, we also face challenges, and we're scared for the future of our company. But we listened to our customers and quickly pivoted to provide what they needed at the time. More than ever, people were looking for a way to stay connected, to stay present, and to still nourish the relationships that they cared so deeply for, especially in a time where being physically present wasn't an option. That was our time to shine, and that's when we really put our work to make sure we were there for our customers and bring what they were looking for. Again, my name is Albania Lopez. I am the founder and CEO of Peachbox Co., and this is how I amplify.
Thank you so much for the inspiring words. And I think there will be a lot of empanada orders. I got very hungry this time of day. So I'll be in touch with Joy Empanadas. And next up, for anyone who's joining us, by the way, I'm Michelle Figueroa. I'm the MC for today's PowerUp 4.0 Latinx Business Summit. And now it's my pleasure to invite our next guest speaker of the day, Massachusetts State Treasurer, Deborah Goldberg. Welcome, Treasurer Goldberg.
Oh, thank you so much, Michelle. And good morning to all of you who are joining us today. I am so happy to be with you at this incredibly important summit and truly appreciate your invitation. I want to send a special shout out and thanks to Betty Francisco for her tremendous work as a community builder. And it is great to be here alongside so many distinguished leaders and activists and entrepreneurs from across our state. The Latinx community is a significant player in the economic success of Massachusetts. I don't have to tell you that nearly 8 in 10 new businesses started here are owned by Latinos, and over 30,000 Latino-owned companies call Massachusetts home. I created the Office of Economic Empowerment in 2014 when I was elected to provide programs designed to close the race and gender wage gap, to address racial inequity, to increase access to financial education, and improve college, vocational, and technical education affordability while investing in STEM careers and education. All these programs have resulted in steps towards my goal of leveling the economic playing field in our state and making sure we have a vibrant, inclusive economy for everyone. I am of the sincere and true belief that a healthy economy and our democracy overall cannot succeed until it overcomes the racial and gender wealth gaps and has become inclusive of everyone. And I mean everyone. In the time we have, and I know we're all running a little late, so I'm going to just quickly highlight a few of my initiatives that my office has taken during the pandemic and otherwise to create an economy that works for everyone. First, my team is currently revamping an existing Treasury program, the Small Business Banking Partnership, launched in 2011. It has moved nearly $100 million in state deposits to qualified community banks for loans to small, creditworthy businesses owned by women and people from diverse backgrounds. However, my staff, once we arrived, heard one thing over and over. Small businesses need the resources, but they also need technical assistance coupled with their loans in order to ensure success. So we've done roundtables, met with thriving entrepreneurs, and shortly we will be launching a toolkit on our website that creates a one-stop shop of all existing information related to business planning, maintenance, and growth. Another aspect of this toolkit is to connect small business owners of color, women-owned businesses, and business owners with disabilities with banks, CDFIs, and community partners in their region to jumpstart capital, offer free resources and technical assistance. We have seen that working people and small businesses across Massachusetts have faced difficult circumstances throughout the pandemic, and Latinx individuals have been hurt, especially hard by this economic downturn. So in May of 2020, we were able to repurpose some resources, and we created the Empowerment Grant for small businesses to support the need of business owners during the COVID-19 pandemic. We prioritized companies supporting small businesses in gateway cities that were minority, women-owned, or veteran-owned. And I am so proud that this grant program was able to financially support 13 businesses owned by people of color and provide all our grantees free one-on-one mentorship opportunities, connecting them with experts from Citizens Bank. Early in 2021, we also created virtual roundtable series to investigate and understand how deeply this pandemic has affected people of color, especially women, and what strategies and policies we could employ to rebuild a more inclusive economy moving forward. In October, we hosted a roundtable on Latina equal pay, which featured Latina leaders from Amplify Latinx and other groups. One of our panelists, Anita Roman, highlighted that the Latinx community is one of the most entrepreneurial communities, although I didn't need to be convinced of that because I know it, within the United States, and remarked how the COVID-19 pandemic wreaked havoc on so many of these businesses. My office's small business programs are designed to address this very need, and we hope to create additional opportunities to push other government and nonprofits to do the same to support Latinx communities throughout this enduring pandemic and beyond. Additionally, we have filed a bill in the legislature to deliver financial education in our public schools. We had done a survey of which schools in Massachusetts are delivering any training or understanding of financial matters. And it was no surprise that programming exists mainly in the more affluent cities and towns, whereas inner cities with more people of color and immigrant communities had little or none, yet must have the opportunity to develop the skills they need to survive and thrive. We see this as a huge issue, and so we're pushing this, and we hope you will too. In this brief time, I wanted to touch on a few highlights of our priorities, but please know that in terms of my values, from day one, we have been breaking down barriers for women and people of color, both internally in our own organization. I have an expression that things must start at home and then throughout the state. It is a personal mission to me, and I am proud of these programs and others that are creating sustainable opportunity and provide direct financial support and mentoring, particularly in time of crisis. For everyone in our state to thrive, it is crucial to invest in small entrepreneurial businesses. When we invest in local economies, it results in job growth and fruitful activity in every aspect of our society. My family came to the north end of Boston in the late 1800s. Interestingly, and this is an absolute truth, their plan was to go to South America, and they actually got on the wrong boat in Liverpool. My mother's great-grandmother, who is the one who immigrated, had 11 children, but on any night, double the amount of people would be sleeping in every corner of their small apartment. And as she believed you could put a roof over your relatives, friends, and neighbors' heads, she also believed in helping them work together to grow small businesses. She believed everyone would thrive. Because of her determination and others like her, generationally coming right to today in your community, I am committed to that idea. And because of her determination, I'm able to be here before you today, and I will never forget that ever. I'm committed to the same values, and I am inspired by all of you leaders here today. I remain committed to work with Latinx community members and individuals to create a Massachusetts economy that includes and provides opportunities for everyone. And everyone to me means everyone. Thank you for having me today. And Michelle, now I will pass it back to you.
Thank you, Treasurer Goldberg, for your words and for being with us today. And now we are ready for our breakout sessions. And our AV Tech, David, is going to give us some instructions.
All right, well, welcome again, everyone. My name is Victoria Downs. I'm one of the co-managers for Small Business Strong. Next slide. Just want to talk a bit about who we are and the work that we do. Small Business Strong is a statewide initiative that's comprised of different organizations from various industries. And we've come together to provide free business advising and implementation support for minority-owned businesses, businesses of color, particularly businesses that have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, working with them to provide business advising to address immediate challenges that they may be experiencing in their business, but also helping them put a plan in place to help them not just address the immediate challenges, but recover and thrive through the COVID pandemic as well as beyond the COVID pandemic. Can you go to the next slide? So this is, we just wanted to showcase one of the clients that Small Business Strong has worked with. Evelyn Brito is with Keep It Simple Productions, and she came to us to help her get her books in order and also get ready to apply for some of the funding that was available as part of the COVID pandemic relief efforts. And our business advisors helped her to get her books together, get her papers in order so that she can apply for those grants and subsequently receive funding to be able to survive the pandemic and is in the recovery period at this point. Moving to the next slide. All right, so we are going to be talking to you about the different ways or the different sources of funding that may be available to small businesses in Massachusetts so that you're able to know which resources are available to you, which ones you may qualify for, which ones are still available, which ones still have funding and what the processes are, and how Small Business Strong can help you apply for some of these programs to ensure that you basically have all your ducks in a row so you can qualify and receive the funding. So we're talking about federal programs as well as Massachusetts programs today. And I want to see if Doug is in the room, because Doug is going to speak to us about the economic federal programs. Doug, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Sorry, took a
So I will
while.
kick it over to you. If you want to introduce yourself really quickly and then talk to us about the programming.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I'm Doug Ling. I'm co-owner, co-manager of Small Business Strong, together with Victoria. I see that we have a couple of our Small Business Strong business advisors here, and also people we work with throughout the pandemic. As Victoria started to say, we have been working with small businesses throughout the pandemic, and one of the things that we hear requests the most, obviously, is how to fund the business during the pandemic and then during the recovery phase. There's still quite a bit of good funding program besides the traditional sources through banks and CDFIs. You've heard a great story about MCCI's loan program earlier. So we just want to introduce you to some of those you might have known. Maybe things have changed. Things are changing quite frequently with the federal program, particularly trying to make the program more accessible to more businesses. And so we're going to focus on two of those programs that are still running. Some of you have accessed the Paycheck Protection Program last year and this year, or the Restaurant Relief Fund. Those have been ended, but there's still a couple of programs that is still active. The Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the Targeted EIDL Advances, and also the Shutter Venue Operator Grant that is actually still available. Okay, next slide. So the one that has been running for the, sort of been beginning of the pandemic is this Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, EIDL. It is available to businesses and nonprofits. It's a loan directly from SBA, so it has to be prepaid. But the good news is that it is a very low interest fixed rate for 30 years at 3.75% for businesses or 2.75% for nonprofit. So it is a not a variable loan, so it will say at this low interest rate for the life of the loan. This has been expanded to have 2 years of payment deferment. That means you don't have to make any payment towards the loan for 2 years. This is expanded from 1 year since the beginning of the EIDL program. The maximum amount is based on the economic injury, so it's based on the loss of revenue from 2019, basically. What has been new recently are the eligible users expanded to, besides the regular payroll, rent, mortgage, utilities, and other ordinary business expenses, is the non-federal business debt you can use the loan to repay, meaning that you can essentially refinance any higher interest rate loans that you have existing. You can use EIDL to pay federal debt, such as 7As or 504s, but you cannot. You can only make the regular payment, but not pay in advance to pay it down. So, but any other business loan, credit cards, your regular bank loan, you can use EIDL to pay for those loans in advance to pay them down or completely. Okay? There's no collateral needs or guarantee under 25,000. Personal guarantee will be required for loans over 200,000. Okay? And also the amount of loan, maximum amount of loan has been expanded as of October this year, up to $5 million. Okay. The only thing that we need to be aware of, the program is scheduled to sunset December 31st, 2021 by statute. So, however, they recently announced that if you have the application in by December 31st, they will process all the loans that is in the pipeline. So that is a good news. You have up to December 31st, midnight, basically, to enter SBA's portal in order to get into the program, and they will be processed even beyond December 31st. Next slide. Next slide. Right, so this is basically the portal. You can start the application, COVID-19 relief, without that t.sba.gov. Next slide. All right. What if you had already a EIDL loan application in last year, or you have or earlier, and you have been denied? I think they're also trying to make that give people a second chance, and two more chances actually, to appeal the denial. And they have also streamlined the process to make the your ability to contest the denial more easily, meaning that they give you more information upfront so that you can cure the application accordingly. The number one, as we heard recently, the number one problem with denial issue basis for denial are unverifiable information. Right? Sometimes you have your you have your tax information incomplete, or you use a different name or something, and they cannot verify the information. And so be very precise in terms of filling out the application, but also when you receive a denial letter, just follow it to the T and submit the reconsideration request to the PDC reconsideration at sba.gov. We have quite a bit of experience helping people cure their applications, so we might be able to help in that respect. Okay, next slide. One of the new program this year that was started in the summer is this targeted EIDL advanced approaches. So the EIDL was available to everybody in every corner of the country. Targeted EIDL is only available to businesses located in low-income area, up to started with $30 billion. The program has been going actually quite slowly. We still have more than $20 billion available as of now. Same as the EIDL, the program will sunset at the end of the year. So there's still quite a bit of money left to be awarded. Okay. As part of this, it's called the EIDL Advance, meaning that you still have to apply, go through the process of applying for EIDL. But the granting of the advance is automatic if you qualify, and is independent of the loan application decision process. So if you apply, if you qualify, you're automatically given the advance before the loan application was even processed. And when that is done, you do not have to accept the loan if you don't want the loan. And you can just walk away with the advance. So in order to check your qualification, you just have to go to the sbaeidl.policymap.com to determine whether your business address falls within a low-income census tract. So if you are, yeah, next slide. Yeah, so this just quickly showed that in Massachusetts, doesn't show the Massachusetts. Right, next slide. Right, so in Massachusetts, the supplemental targeted advance, it's only 6,680 awards. So it's really, really undersubscribed as far as we can tell. So next slide. Right, so if you go to the policy map and you see roughly this is the shaded purple areas of where the low-income census tracts are. If you look into, you can zoom in and you can see the community where you are, whether your business falls within it. Unfortunately, sometimes on the same street, if you're on the wrong side of the street, you actually would not qualify. It depends on how the census tract is laid out and where your business location is. But there's quite a bit of, you can see some concentration. We can look at the Springfield area, Brockton, New Bedford, etc. We fall within one of those shaded purple area, then your business qualify for the targeted EIDL loan. Can advance. Next. All right. So yeah, so those are the federal program. We're not going to go into this shutter venue operator program that has been a program that is started early in the spring. and it has been for businesses that could not be opened since because of the pandemic. And if you're interested in that situation, that program, we can talk about it offline later on. Okay. There are a couple of the three main Massachusetts programs that Small Business Strong has been working with very closely. I don't know, Kristen, do you want to?
Sure, I can jump in here. Thank you, Doug.
Yeah.
For reviewing the programs available at the federal level right now. Again, just to recap on the EIDL loan and the targeted advance and supplemental advance, you guys can apply if you have a small business and you're looking for those type of funds. You have until the end of the year to apply, so make sure to take advantage of that. And at the state level, there are a couple of programs available right now that might be of interest to you all. So the first that we'll talk about very briefly is the MGCC Biz Empower Matching Crowdfunding Grant, as well as the MGCC Empower Digital Grant. And then it looks like we also have some info on the MGCC Community Development Block Grant, 10th round. So we'll see what that is. Okay, so MGCC, Massachusetts Growth Capital Corporation, that's a state agency, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, and they administer a lot of the lending and grant programs that are available at the state level. They were the organization that put out the COVID relief grants last year that helped a lot of small businesses, and now they have some programs really tailored to some specific purposes. So they have, so if you go to their website, www.empoweringsmallbusiness.org, you'll be able to access all the stuff that we're going to cover in the next few minutes here. But the Biz Empower program, it's a matching crowdfunding grant. So if you guys think about Kickstarter, Indiegogo, you know, all those kind of sites where you raise money for your business, MGCC has created a program to actually match dollar for dollar what you raise up to $20,000. So if you, and it's through this new program called Patronicity, if I'm saying that right, Patronicity. That's the vendor that they've selected to actually develop the campaigns. So you have an opportunity to apply for this matching grant. So this is for businesses that it can be new businesses and existing businesses. You have to have been in existence for at least 3 months. You need to have 20 or fewer employees. Annual revenues can't exceed 2.5 million. You need to have a physical customer-facing location, kind of like a brick and mortar. It can't be a home-based business, for example. And there are certain ways that that you can use the funds, but it's a matching grant program, dollar for dollar. So in this program, you would create a campaign, raise the money, and if you meet your goal, they'll match it dollar for dollar. So this is an excellent program. And I encourage you guys to check out the website for all of the details. And the program is currently open and open through June of next year if funding doesn't run out. And so we have here just a couple of examples of some businesses that are raising money right now. So you can kind of get a sense of the projects that have been approved and that are seeking funding for the matching grant. Want to highlight here on this screen, we got a business up in our neck of the woods. Jessie's Clean Meals is currently looking for funds. She's working out of the revolving test kitchen in Lawrence, Massachusetts. So again, we encourage you to reach out to the MGCC website and check out these programs to see if it might be a good fit for your business. I feel like the Biz Empower is a really good option for businesses that might already have a pretty good customer base and have good customer following, community support, because that you're going to be raising, if you are approved, you're going to be raising money to meet your goal. So that'll be really important. The other program that MGCC has right now that's really great is the Empower Digital Grant, and this can provide up to $5,000 of funds to help you guys implement new digital systems, whether that's a bookkeeping system like QuickBooks or a new website, and other kind of digital improvements. And if you have questions about this program, you can contact Una O at empowerdigital@massgcc.com. And so some examples here, you can see kind of how folks have been using the funds, designers, digital marketing strategists, social media strategists, again, website development, point of sale system. If you're a restaurant and you don't have a point of sale system yet, this is definitely a program that could help you implement that technology. The grant can also pay for photographers, writers, and then as it comes to software, again, financial bookkeeping, design, point of sale, productivity, social media, cybersecurity, Wi-Fi upgrade, internet package. So a lot of flexibility here, and it's up to $5,000. It used to be a matching grant, so you had to put in some money to make the project happen, but they recently changed that. So up to $5,000, you don't even have to have cash available for the project. So this is another great opportunity. Let's see. And then this one, do you know this one? This is new to me. Okay, thanks, Doug.
All right, so the last one we don't bring up is just a very small window, but there's still money to go. The Community Development Block Grant is the federal money that is awarded to municipalities that for use in, in this case, micro enterprise assistant grant. So MGCC at the end of the year, from all these towns that the program is available for the unused money, they pulled it back together and then open it up for everybody to apply. So in the towns of Ashland, Beverly, Burlington, Canton, Dedham, Essex, Lexington, Manchester, by the Sea, Melrose, Milton, Natick, North Reading, Norwood, Randolph, Reading, Southborough, Stoneham, Watertown, and Winchester, Woburn. If your business is located in any of these towns, or if you're in Marlborough and Concord, Marlborough and Concord still, the town still are controlling the application for these funds, so they don't go through MGCC. But if you're in the two towns, you can go back to the town's economic development authorities and seek out these funds. But if you're in any of these other towns, the application is to open until December 1st at midnight, and up to $25,000 available per grant. You can, even if you're previous MGCC grantees, because it's federal dollars, if you have the EIDL or PPP or Restaurant Relief Fund, you can still apply as long as there's no duplication of benefit. Some of those, you already have PPP, but that only lasted 24 weeks. So there's plenty of time you can use this money to pay rent or payrolls and other utilities or other business operating expenses. You can use this money to buy new equipment or expand your business or purchase a business or anything like that. But if your existing business want to pay regular business expenses, this is a great opportunity. But the window is very small. It will close on December 1st, 2021. Okay. So in order to check for your income eligibility, this is again only you can only apply if you the business owner falls within a low to moderate income low to moderate income classification. So to check whether you your household income, and household meaning everybody in the household, so including the grandparents and parents and children, right? Working age children. So you add up all the income, and if it falls within below 80% of the area median household income, which you can look up in the HUD user website. Next slide. Next slide, please. Oops. Yeah, so if you go to the website and you type in Massachusetts, you select the town you're in, next slide, and then you can determine your household income. So in the greater Boston, Eastern Massachusetts, basically these data apply. So if you have a four-person household, you can make up to $107,000 and still qualify for moderate income. So if you go to the western part of the state, the data is a little bit lower still. So you can, that would determine whether you qualify for the MGCC CDBG grant. Yeah. So those are the state and federal grants that it's available. Once again, we're focusing on just the grants, things that you do not have to pay back. We have another opportunity with the Verizon program. I think you heard a little bit about earlier in the main room. They have a new series of video training modules for small businesses in various topics. If you go through two training modules, register and go through two training modules, you'll be invited for this $10,000 grant to help your small business. So we may have, we haven't got the link up here, but if you're interested, you can talk to us and we'll get you the link. Yeah.
All right. So we have a couple of questions in the chat about the programs that you both just spoke to. Both questions are from Paulette. The first question is, does the Empower Digital Grant allow businesses to apply for funding for several projects? If, of course, in alignment with how the money will be used, such as implementing a CRM or video production. Is that something that's allowed under the Empower Digital Grant?
It's my understanding. Well, the first part of the question, if this is the question, it's my understanding one grant per business. So you would complete one application, and as part of the application, you prepare what they call a digital development plan. So you look at your business overall and think about, what are your goals and what are the strategies that you're looking at for improving your digital capacity to help, improve profitability, grow sales, that kind of thing. So it would have to be one application for the 5,000, but it can include some very, different types of things. So, a CRM certainly would fall under digital transformation as well as video. That's part of your marketing strategy, and you need a video to be produced. I believe that would fall under, the permissible uses of funds. So I think that's
absolutely. Yeah. You can combine, there will be people who buy a POS system and then update the website. If it all can fall within the budget, you can have a digital marketing plan that specify the two projects. One thing to be careful about is they want to fund businesses that represent the primary income source for the owner, right? So if you have a side business, if you're employed somewhere, but you have a side business, that may not qualify. You may have to make some strong argument for it. And it's the same reason they want to have support brick and mortar business, that there is, that there is some established business operation is not, you're using a share space, on demand, and they want to make sure that the business is your primary income source.
Yeah, and I think that I forgot to mention that in the description, but like the Biz Empower grant, I believe the Empower Digital also has that requirement of the public facing, or basically brick and mortar. So home base wouldn't qualify.
Thank you both. There's another question about, are there any other grants similar to the community development grant currently available in Western Mass Paulette's business is in Springfield, and she's looking for grants specific to her her location. Do we know of any? It's for either you or Doug or Kristen.
Well, certainly Springfield, there are a lot of falls under the targeted EIDL, low-income census tract. I'm not aware of anything in Springfield per se, but yeah, if you're interested, we can talk later and see if we can find something that appropriate. Kristen, do you know of any?
Well, I'm not sure about the CDBG, the stuff out in Western Mass. That would be something new to me, but I do know that there's a fellow CDFI or Community Development Financial Institution out in Western Mass called Common Capital, and I believe they're based in Springfield. So that might be a first stop for you to reach out to them. commoncapitalma.org is their website. So maybe just call someone there, because CDFIs can be a great kind of starting point for small businesses that are looking for funds for their business, whether that be grants or loans or equity capital. So I would recommend checking out Common Capital.
And I just wanted to ask really quickly, because we didn't talk about the PPP loans and the forgiveness process that's been going on. So just wanted to ask, from both of your experiences, what have you seen with, we have 1 minute. So yeah, what have you seen with, like, what are some of the things that folks are experiencing trying to get their loans forgiven? Doug, if you want to speak to this, and then we can share how folks can work with SBS.
Yeah, I think for PPP, those who have PPP from last year, you probably should all have received some sort of notification from your bank or the lender that you should go apply for forgiveness. Remember that the loan can be 100% forgiven if you follow the spending guideline and spend it on 60% on your payroll. So if you, for those who just got it this year, some earlier people who got it in March, April, have already started to get the notification from banks that says that you can now apply for forgiveness, and we've done the quite, whoops.
Thank you. I'm assuming I won't start over, but we'll
continue, Bill.
We also increased our evaluation percentage for evaluating supplier diversity plans. So when a bidder bids, they're supposed to have a plan in their bid that shows how much they're going to commit of their spending toward diverse and small businesses. We increased that from 10% of the evaluation score to 25%. So that's really going to make a difference in terms of people taking them much more seriously when they're bidding, and hopefully including a very robust plan within their supplier diversity plan and within their bid. Some additional resources that I'm sure some folks on the team will talk about in more detail is we developed the supplier diversity playbook for public entities to use, resources web page for our diverse and small businesses. We're also in the process of implementing a heat map, I guess you'd call it, of diverse businesses throughout the Commonwealth. So you could look at the map of the Commonwealth and hone in on a city or town or a zip code and determine what businesses are certified in that town if you're looking for a local business to do business with. We're also implementing a new system that I know one of my colleagues, I'm sure, will talk about in more detail, and I don't want to steal their thunder. So that's going to help us to really connect businesses, diverse businesses, with prime contractors, with agencies, as well as with our office, to make sure that we're all talking to each other and that we're better coordinating and making those connections between all of those entities more simpler. And lastly, we're working very closely with other public entities to try to get them to adopt supplier diversity programs, because we really think that our program is working well, but we want to make sure that others are hopefully replicating it with public money, for example, at the city or town level, or within an independent agency or other places as well. So that's some of the fun stuff we're doing, and we'd love to keep you updated on it. please check out our website, mass.gov/SDO, and track our progress. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. So now I'm going to go a little bit over certification program.
Yeah, Wanda, thank you. I meant to pass it off to you. So you're the
That's
expert
all
on
right.
certification. I didn't want to get into much detail on certification. So thank you. If you could describe that, that'd be great.
So the certification program is based on, you have to own at least 51%. The supply diversity certifies certain certifications. These are the ones that you see on the screen. Minority business owner enterprise, woman business enterprise, veteran business enterprise, minority nonprofit, and woman nonprofit, and also Portuguese business enterprise. We also recognize other third-party certifiers. The service, you could get service disabled, you could be a service disabled business enterprise or a disability business enterprise or LGBT business enterprise. And those are all three recognized through a different third-party organization. So service disabled is through the U.S. Veteran Affairs, and DOBI is through Disability Inc., and LGBT certification is through NGLCC. The benefits of certification, there's no cost. You're awarded, you could be awarded on a state contract, the ability to market your business throughout the Commonwealth. It makes you be eligible to be a supply diversity partner to some Commonwealth prime contractors. We also have a lot of invitations for trainings, networking events, matchmaking events. That's pretty much it. And you can participate in a variety of supply diversity programs, which I'm gonna transfer it to some of my other clients, my other panelists, colleagues. The next slide, please. I believe I have another slide. We also have a self-assessment tool on our website. You could go into it's a self-assessment, and this is where you could determine what certification, and if certification is right for you. So you go in there, put your name, fill it out, and from that you answer some general questions, and from that you will be able to determine what type of certification you could be possibly eligible for. Next slide, please. We also have a directory. In our directory, it's we're in the process of sort of updating it to make it a little bit user-friendly. In here, you could find various different companies if you're looking for. You could just go in and click according to your certification type, or if you're looking for a different type of business that provides certain services like painting services, you could just put that in general. Also, if you needed to look at a whole bunch of businesses all at the same time, you could also export that to an Excel spreadsheet. And right here will be the link to go right to our SDO directory of certified businesses. Now I'm going to have Robert describe to us, provide some opportunities for diverse businesses.
Awesome, great. Hello, Wanda. Good day, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. As Wanda mentioned, my name is Rob Williams. I'm the Director of Engagement for the Supply Diversity Office. And I'm going to share with you some information on our flagship programs that we have in supply diversity. But I just want to first start really continue to engage with you around what Wanda and Bill shared with you as well. The real power and the opportunity to engage in the marketplace with supply diversity starts with certification. So I just really want to encourage everyone, get certified, because that's really where you can begin to engage our marketplace. You'll learn a lot about our opportunities when our colleague Dimitri talks a little bit more about that. It's also a great, powerful marketing tool that you can use to engage. All of our contracts are engaged in some form or fashion with supplier diversity or smaller business, okay? So our three flagship programs that we have are, our three flagship programs we have are our small business purchasing program, and we also have our, pull this up for you, I'm sorry guys. Our small business purchasing program, which is known as SBPP. We also have our supplier diversity program, which goes by the acronym of SDP. And we also have a construction program, which is our municipal construction affirmative marketing program, known as MCAMP, okay? So the first flagship program, and again, the consistent theme across all these programs is spending. I know earlier today there was a slide regarding spending, and we can address that as well. But one of the things that we've done with our office, our agency, independent, is really looking at spending across all of our agencies. Okay, so clearly it's intentional around this. So the first program, Small Business Purchasing Program, this involves procurements under $250,000. Okay, so any procurement up to $250,000, there's going to be a real intent to engage a small business. Now, the qualifications around small business, there's a couple of ones. There's three actually. You have to be a small business that's in Massachusetts, right? So your principal place of business has to be in Massachusetts. The second one is that you have to be in operation for at least 1 year, okay, to be considered a small business under our program. And your business cannot employ more than 50 employees, okay? Your gross annual revenues are no more than $15 million. And that's over a 3-year period, okay? A 3-year annual period. So that's our first flagship program, Small Business Purchasing Program, okay? So we encourage you to get certified for that. Okay, the second one is our flagship program, Supplier Diversity. And this is the program that we're probably most known for across the Commonwealth. We're also, I should say, we're one of the most inclusive certifying agencies across the nation as well. Okay, so again, the consistent theme is that we want to increase participation of diverse businesses and also increase spending. Okay, so whenever there's an opportunity, we want to identify one of our certified companies that Wanda mentioned earlier, MBE, WBE, our veteran-owned businesses, our service-disabled businesses, also our disability-owned businesses, and also LGBT business enterprises as well. Now, the difference in this program is that we identify procurements over $250,000 a year, okay? So any procurement that's in the amount of $250,000 or more, there has to be a supplier diversity partner engaged in that procurement. Okay, so this again is where you really want to leverage the power of certification, okay, to get engaged and make sure you get certified. So please, that's a key starting point for engaging the marketplace. Okay, and then we also have, I should point out that we have goals attached to these programs. So in our supplier diversity program, we have a MBE spending goal of 8%. We also have a women business enterprise spending goal of 14%, and we have a veteran goal of 3%. Okay, and I should have mentioned earlier in our first program, our small business purchase program, we have a spending goal of 3.3%. Okay, and we'll have an opportunity to answer, to ask questions as we go through as well at the end. Okay, so our next flagship program is our Municipal Construction Affirmative Marketing Program, which is known as MCAM. Now, this program involves our construction. I should have mentioned earlier, the other two programs are really around goods and services. This program really deals with construction. So this involves municipal projects, cities and towns, which includes state funding with project-specific MBE and WBE goals. Okay, so where there's state money or state funding involved with these cities and towns, local municipal projects, there's going to be supply diversity oversight on those and monitoring. Okay. Okay. You can also take a look at the current list of public school projects at the Mass School Building Authority website. Okay, and we'll share some information with you on that. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert. So Rob, Bill mentioned earlier that SDO is compiling, developing, and posting important resources on our website. Can you describe those resources for us?
I sure will. Thank you, Wanda. And this is where we're going to have a lot of fun, guys. I mean, we talk about our agency becoming independent and being one of the newest executive agencies Bill mentioned earlier. We've also developed a new web page, and this is a living document. So we're continuing to get more and more resources to add to it. But the page primarily looks at training and development resources. Also, we identify our bidding opportunities. So you'll see any new procurements that's out there. You'll see those procurements listed. But one of the things that we've added to the website is our capacity building and financial and technical assistance resources. You heard Secretary Goldberg mentioned earlier all the great resources that are being made available to small business owners and our certified businesses. This is another one where we have an RFI that's went out. So banks, any nonprofit technical assistance providers, you'll see their information listed on the site as well. Now, if you know of any resource providers, we encourage you to please send that information to us. A great example is Amplify Latinx. We have their information out there as well. So please, we encourage you to take a look at the website and please leverage those resources out there, okay? And then we also have our SDO organizational partnerships that are there as well, okay? So Wanda,
thank you, Robert. Now
Okay.
I'm going to give it over to Dimitri. Dimitri, can you please tell us about some other resources that are available from the Supply Diversity Office? Like, for example, our newest diversity playbook.
Thank you so much, Wanda. Thank you, everybody, for coming to the workshop. I will talk I will say a few words about some of the other resources. Before I even get to the Municipal Supply Diversity Playbook, I think I'm going to steal Rob's thunder here and say that the main resource that we have at the SDO is people. On a daily basis, Rob, Ixchel, all of us, we meet with small and diverse businesses. People call, people sign up, folks email, and you do not have to be certified to talk to us. So please contact us. There's going to be our contact information at the end of the presentation. We deal with a wide range of different groups of stakeholders. Of course, one of the key groups is buyers. Our typical purview is, of course, the executive branch of the state government. But once we've been given the opportunity to be a standalone agency, we are reaching out to the municipalities. And we've developed a municipal supply diversity playbook that really recognizes that every municipality is different. They all have a different level of achievement or organization around their supply diversity initiatives. But it's clear that a lot of them, probably all of them, are interested in doing more to support businesses in their communities. So this is just the homepage of the presentation that we developed, and it's a set of resources for any municipality to really jumpstart their supply diversity efforts or boost them if they already have them. I guess, Wanda, you might have another question for me.
Okay, so Dimitri, can you tell us a little bit about the new diversity engagement compliance and reporting system and how this system will help diverse and small businesses?
And as I mentioned, because we have these different audiences, the buyers, the prime contractors that we are requiring to create supply diversity partnerships, and diverse and small businesses, we are building a system that is going to enable us to support agency compliance, making sure that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing for our constituents, enable best practices. For example, one of the best practices is encouraging bidders to actually participate in state bids, make the information more accessible, and also really connect everybody and make sure that we're helping all of our stakeholders to really make business connections that result in prime contracts and agencies spending money with diverse and small vendors. That's how we measure our success. We're currently designing and developing the system. It's going to be released by the end of the fiscal year in the spring. Please talk to us about updates. We're always at an event with a presentation about what we're doing right at that moment.
Thanks,
and
Jimmy.
I want to mention one more resource. I think there's another slide that's coming up.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about small businesses access contracting opportunities with the state.
Right. The central resource that the state has for every business, again, whether you're certified or not, to engage with diverse, to engage with state agencies is the Combis website. It's our state marketplace. The first button that you need to click there is to register. The registration is free. and it's pretty quick. It also asks you if you're a Massachusetts small business. That is what it includes. In addition to that, every week, the website publishes a bid, a list of bids that were published over the 7 days prior. So you can check it out even without logging in, right under other resources in the right lower corner, under newly posted bids. That's our resource number 2. Resource number 3 is a set of things that talks about statewide contracts. We have a partnership with the Operational Services Division, which is the state procurement office. They do procurements by aggregating demand for things that departments need on a daily basis across the state. And you can see the list of current statewide contracts, the information that the Operational Services Division provides to buyers about those contracts, how to use the contract, who's on the contract, how to order, and so forth. So you can find out how we do business in a specific industry. And then if you're wondering what's going to happen on for this or that contract, you can look at our procurement schedule that looks 6 months ahead to see if a particular contract is going to be rebid or renewed. Finally, we're not going to leave you hanging, just sort of clicking on links. OSD actually provides amazing training. I highly recommend it. And it's accessible as resource number 4 right there on the Combis webpage. You can see a webcast on YouTube. You can sign up for an instructor-led webinar, or you can also, if you're in a hurry, look at the job aid that combines instructions and screenshots of the Combis website. We wish you luck. Once again, please contact us. You don't have to do it alone, and we're here to help.
Thank you, Dimitri. Now, Ixchel, as our newest member as an event and outreach coordinator, can you tell us a little bit what you're going to be doing here at SDO?
Hi, Wanda. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So I am the new events and outreach coordinator for SDO, and I'm actually really, really excited about it. Some of you may have already known me from working in the governor's office when I was in Access and Opportunity. I work very closely with the BAC and the LAC, but what some of y'all might not know is that I also work closely with SDO. And during that time that we've been working together, yeah, they stole my heart. So when it was time for me to leave, the governor's office, I was really happy they were willing to take me under their wing and let me join their team. You guys are such a great team. I'm very thankful to be here. You guys have such an impactful set of values. You're so excited about your goals and you're incredibly dedicated to your vision. And my job is that I have to talk about how much I love this place. So that's really great. I'm really excited and lucky and happy to be here. But not only am I talking about how much I love SDO, I also get a chance to connect with all of you virtually through events. This is my debut event, but hopefully you'll be seeing me more often at more virtual events and hopefully in person next year, considering how COVID is. And I'm here to help you along the way. Not only am I here to welcome you with big open arms the same way SDO welcomed me, I'm also here to help you with any questions that you might have. And if I don't have the answers, I will definitely find you someone that does. But at the end of the day, SDO, what we're all doing here today while we're at this Power Up Summit is to be a part of making history. This is so important. This is such important work. And we can be a part of this change that we want to see, the dreams of our ancestors, what we want for our future generations. So we're very happy to be here, to be able to connect with y'all. Thank you for welcoming me into this space. And I'm really excited to connect with everyone.
Thanks, Ixchel. So if we have any answers, questions or discussions here, also we're gonna have right now if anybody has any questions in our chat feature.
All right, let me check for you.
For the panel.
Hi, Wanda. I just wanted to also wanted to acknowledge our we have a couple of colleagues on the call. I know Dimitri mentioned them earlier. And Dimitri, you're right on about the people that we have. And Bill mentioned earlier, like we're really building out the team as well. So I know we have Doreen, I see Doreen Cameron, who's our director of compliance. I know Betty's on the call. Compliance, Betty's gonna be big for us. We got Doreen on the call. We have Nani Asefa, who heads up our technology area and who does a great job with all the 3,800 business owners that are in our database. That all goes through Nani. We have Lewis, who you see first off the gate. Lewis is an investigator with Wanda's team. And then we have, and you met Excel already. So you see Lewis when you're getting certified, like he's one of the first folks you see at the starting line. Then you have Excel, you get Samantha, who's our events person, will be part of our team. We have a marketing communications person that'll be joining us. But then we have Teresa. I want you guys to meet Teresa. I see Teresa on the call. Teresa is our chief financial officer as well. So I think.
And we also have Robert. We have Melevi's.
Millie is too. I think Millie's there.
Millie.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Wanda. I'm sorry.
I was just saying, you forgot Millie. Millie's another.
I'm sorry. No, I never forget Millie. Millie, I'm sorry.
Hi, everyone.
For your name, but I see you now, Millie. There you go. And Millie, who's also an investigator. Now, Millie, of course, never forget Millie. Millie's our investigator as well. She works with us. I'm sorry, Wanda. Yeah.
Okay, so I have 2 investigators on my team. I'm in the process of hiring a 3rd investigator. So just for you guys to know, for the Commonwealth, we certify businesses on a monthly basis. We can certify maybe 30 to 40 cases on a monthly basis. And there's companies coming in on the pipeline all the time. And we only have 2 investigators and we're about to have 3 and they do an amazing job. I just wanted to give kudos to them. The next slide that I wanted to show really quickly is, give it back to Excel, is she could go over a little bit of our contact information and our resource links.
Yeah, thank you, Wanda. So I know we threw a lot of information at you guys really quickly today. So just in case, the most important thing that you should take away from this meeting today is to get a certification self-assessment test, especially if you're a small business. This will help you figure out whether you're eligible to be state certified. And the great thing about it is that you most likely already are. You're very, very likely that you can get state certification. And once you're done taking this quiz, it's literally 2 minutes. It'll take you to the next step and it'll take you to the next step. So we try to make it very painless and intuitive for you. But if you get lost along the way, our main website is mass.gov/SDO. If you have any questions about the certification process, you can reach us at our email at webmaster.sdo@mass.gov. You can see it there at the bottom of the slide. Or if you want to do a little bit more digging on information before you jump into anything and you want to hear more about the program that Rob was talking earlier with the supplier diversity program, you can visit the website again at www.mass.gov/SDP. But all the information you need is with these links right here. And if you need to reach out to us, please do. We're ready and willing to help.
I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I especially want to thank the Amplify Latinx community for giving us the privilege to present here our workshop this morning. Today we want to really discuss Verizon's commitment to small business. My name is Francisco Mejia. I'm a managing partner with Verizon Business Group. And, we really want to discuss a couple of things here. Verizon's Business Group's commitment to small business, their digital ready platform, which is a platform with curated content to help you scale your small business. The next thing we want to talk about today is how to protect your business and your customers' data by understanding cybersecurity threats. That's a really big topic in the news right now is cybersecurity. So we really want to cover that hope some of the small business today can understand the threats that are out there. And next, we want to understand the past, the present, and the future of the telecommunications technology and how that can unlock the potential of your connection and scaling your small business to serve your customers, right? How the evolution of the business phone has become digital. And then, feel free to enter questions in the chat. We'll leave some time at the end to answer some questions. And if you'd like a representative, a Verizon representative, to follow up with you after today's workshop, please post your email in the chat, and we'll make sure someone gets back to you. Now, I want to introduce Kathleen Flynn. She is the Greater Boston Director of Community Engagement, and she will discuss Verizon's commitment to small business and the new platform that I just discussed. Kathleen, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much. I'm so pleased to be here with everyone today to share Verizon's commitment to small business. And specifically, we are launching a new platform to support small businesses that I'm eager to share with you. Slide. Verizon realizes that small businesses were particularly impacted by the pandemic. In response, we launched the Small Business Recovery Fund, and we funded it with $10 million to issue grants of up to $10,000 to small businesses across the U.S. Out of the 777 businesses that received grants, 86 of these were Massachusetts companies who received a total of $900,000. Looking forward, Verizon has committed to provide 1 million small businesses with the resources they need to thrive in the future. We will accomplish this through a new program, which is the Verizon Small Business Digital Ready Platform. And we've included the website here where we invite you to register, the complimentary tool for any small business. Slide. And we can advance one more. Thank you. The Small Business Digital Ready Platform includes 4 different components. It includes courses that are made up of self-paced content. It includes mentorship, which will connect you with experts who can help you apply what you learn. Networking to foster connections with other businesses to share information and opportunities. And finally, incentives, including discounts and grants for program participants. Slide. When you first register on the tool, you are asked a series of questions, and this helps to personalize your experience to deliver the content that is most important for you. The content that's contained in the platform covers a variety of topics, including finance, access to funding, marketing, human resources, and securing contracts. Slide, please. Verizon Small Business Digital Ready Platform learning plans are customized to areas that interest you, what's most important to you and your business. We're adding new functionality all the time, including incentives and more participants. We encourage you to register today at verizon.com/smallbusinessdigitalready. As I close out, I'd like to share a 30-second video that does a great job describing Verizon Small Business Digital Ready. Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to your questions.
The world is going digital. Does your small business have what it needs to succeed? Introducing Verizon Small Business Digital Ready, the free online program designed to give your business the tools it needs to thrive in today's digital economy. With access to personalized learning plans that help you stay ahead in the online marketplace, coaching from experts, and networking opportunities with diverse businesses in your industry. It's all part of our plan to leave no small business behind. Register at verizon.com/smallbusinessdigitalready.
Thank you, Kathleen. Now I'm going to introduce Tristan O'Brien. He's our Senior Manager for Security Solutions at Verizon, and he's going to discuss cybersecurity threats.
Thanks, Francisco. Yeah, I really appreciate it. And, you know, it's interesting. I've been at Verizon for quite some time, almost 18 years. And a lot of it has been in the security side of the house. And it's interesting to take a look at small businesses where over the past few years, the types of attacks that go against small businesses and how it really impacts a business if it is attacked. And it really can be any size. But my team works with small businesses across the country, helping to identify ways that we can protect your business. And matter of fact, we'll go ahead and kick it off on the first slide here. We have a report. We call it the DBIR, and it really goes over cybersecurity trends. And the cool thing about this report is anybody can read it. We put it out every single year. And I am going to share a few stats here in a second, but just to give you some context, what we are able to do is, you know, Verizon's a large company. We work with a lot of organizations and partners, and we're able to collect insight into breaches of all sizes. This year and last year really focused on small to medium businesses. And it's interesting that a lot of the techniques that these bad guys are using, we call them threat actors. You can see that on the right side, we call them the bad guy, the threat actors. The attacks that they're using on enterprise companies, they're also using on small to medium businesses. And what we have found, and we'll go over more stats here in a second, but 60% of the time when a small business has a breach, whether that's, you know, their website was attacked and everything was locked on their computer, or they were able to get customer information and shared it out. What we've seen is 60% of the time within 6 months that small business goes under because there's a financial impact to that, not only for an image, but also financially when you have to fix the issue. But anyway, as I go through some of the stats here, just know that this is the 14th year that we put out the DBIR. We work with over 83 organizations, plus a huge handful of partners, and we've analyzed a lot of breaches per se. So let's move to the next slide, and I'm gonna throw a couple stats at you. The biggest one that we saw last year and this year is social engineering. And if you're not familiar with social engineering, it's actually a broad term, but maybe you've heard of phishing before. Phishing is when somebody sends you an email or a text message and they're like, oh yeah, hey, click this link because you won a prize, or your FedEx package is here, or we need you to re-sign into your Microsoft Office account. Those types of things, and they're the threat actors, they're pretending to be somebody else. They usually have what we call a pretext, which is a story saying, hey, this is who I am, you better click on this. But what happens when you click on those links and you put in your Microsoft Office credentials or your Google credentials or your banking information, and the site doesn't work, you've been phished at that point. And that is the number one way that we have seen people from a social engineering standpoint really get into trouble. And my team goes in and we make sure that that doesn't happen. And if it does happen, we can help you with that. But take a look at the trend here. Going into 2020, there's an exponential growth with that. A lot of people working from home, of course, we know that. A lot of small businesses have to adapt and change, but the attacks continue to happen. And it's really interesting to see that trend, because that's going to continue to happen throughout 2021 and going into 2022. So let's take a look at another trend that's happening really quick from a small business standpoint. That is ransomware. You may have heard that term before. It's big in the news right now, but ransomware is if a bad guy, a threat actor, can get onto your network of your business, and whatever system you're using, whether it's using a laptop with Microsoft on it or using MacBook or Linux or whatever, they're able to put malware on your computer that locks all of your software, locks all of your customer information. Any file that's on your computer is locked. And then they say, I can unlock this for you if you pay me some money. And that's not good. That's happening a lot more. 10% of the breaches that we saw in 2020 going into 2021 was ransomware. And again, that's an exponential change that we're seeing. And that's going to continue to happen throughout 2021 and going into 2022. But it's expensive. So the average breach when that happens is almost $50,000. And for a small business, I mean, then it goes up from medium and large businesses. But think about the reason behind that. Not only do you have to pay money for them to unlock it for you, but then there's the downtime. How much time, maybe it took you a week to get all this sorted out, and maybe they did not unlock it for you when they said they were going to. But that is increasing up 2 times year over year, and it's the 3rd largest breach that we have. Let's take a look at the next one here. The next one is 85% of breaches involve human element. And this is really important too, from a small business standpoint. As you start bringing people onto into your organization, you need to make sure that they are aware of the different breaches that are out there, that they're aware of these phishing attempts, that someone could call them and pretend to be you or pretend to be someone in your business and say, hey, I need you to send me information or give me the banking information or the whatever software logins that you're using. Because we're susceptible to that. I'm in the security world. I talk about this every single day, and I've been phished before because these threat actors, they're getting smart and they're getting really creative with the way that we fall into it. So you can have all the software in the world, antivirus, things that are stopping you from going to a malicious website. You can have all the software, but you need to train the human element because we fall into that for sure. So let's move on here, Asher, if you don't mind. I do want to talk about cloud real quick too. A lot of small businesses are using the cloud. The cloud just being like, that's where your Gmail is, or that's where your Microsoft Office is, or that's where anything is. And I want to bring up email, for example, because email, almost every business nowadays has moved from not having a server on within their business. There's still a risk there, but you think if it's in the cloud, like Microsoft or Google, those are the top 2 there, you would think that they are more secure, and inherently they are, but that goes back to the phishing attempt. If someone can get your login information, what can they do? What is in your email? Probably customer information, probably business information they want people to know, probably products and promotions and things that are coming out. There's a lot of things that are in there that you don't want them to know. But 96% of mail servers were compromised in the cloud, or from the cloud there. Not 96% of them were compromised, but if they were compromised, it could be because it was in the cloud and they were phished. And it's really interesting because from a security standpoint, like on my end, it's really hard to tell where that came from. It's in the cloud. Like if it's on premise, we could take a look at some reporting that you guys have and be like, oh yeah, this is where they came in. It's in the cloud, it's hard to know. So we need to make sure that we're locking those down. 2-factor authentication, making sure that they have to send you a text message and you put that in, or passphrases are long, those types of things. All right, so that's from the DBIR. We're gonna move on to our next topic here too, which are 4 key attack vectors. So when you think about on the mobile side, you know, you have laptops, you're probably out away from your business. Maybe you're working from home and you travel out, or maybe you're in an office, travel out. But there's 4 key attack vectors from these bad guys, what they're looking at. First, the users. I'm gonna go over that quick. We talked about phishing. You guys know what that is. Credential theft, stealing your passwords. That's the biggest thing. But also on your mobile devices, your tablets, your cell phones, even people have digital displays that are mobile that are out there. There's things that can happen. You can get malware, which is viruses. We want to make sure that they are encrypted. And one thing that we do really well from a consultant standpoint is make sure that those are protected. But some things that people don't think about are devices and networks. Devices, let's say that you do have 2-factor authentication on, where you're going to get a text message if you're trying to sign into your Microsoft Office. You put that passphrase in that you got the text message. But what if some morning you wake up and you look at your phone and it says no service, and you're like, oh, okay, well maybe Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, whoever you have, maybe they're down right now. I'll give it some time. But that doesn't come up through the day. Then all of a sudden you try to log into things and you're locked out. That can happen. That can happen from a social engineering standpoint. Threat actors can call in pretending to be you, and they can have what we call a SIM swap, where it's not necessarily a physical taking the SIM out and putting it in your device. It's more of them just saying, hey, I need you to swap that SIM over to mine. And now they have access to your text messages, your phone calls. And if they are doing that 2-factor, they get that text message, you can log in. Verizon does a really good job at stopping that. Not only do we do training several times throughout the year, but just processes in place. When you call in, you can verify by your voice, verify by text messaging, verify by a lot of things, PIN codes, to make sure that doesn't happen. And then the networks piece, just as you're out and about, maybe you're connecting to a Starbucks Wi-Fi or a random Wi-Fi, just know that there are some bad guys that are out there that could pretend to be that Wi-Fi that you're connecting to, and then can see everything that you're sending. That's called a man-in-the-middle attack. We help protect all of these things, just so you know. We like to come in from a consultant standpoint and just take a look at your small business and say, here's some areas of opportunity. So just know that that's something that we do. But these 4 key attack vectors are really big. And then I do have one more stat from a wireless standpoint on the next slide here, if you don't mind. I'm only going to point out the last one here, 23%. 23% of the people that responded said that they had a mobile compromise. The mobile side, a lot of us don't think about, but that's growing exponentially. And you really need to make sure that you're protecting your mobile devices just like you would your computer within your 4 walls at your house or your office location. So I like the little stat down there. What you don't know may indeed hurt you. So we need to make sure that we are protecting those. So I wanted to play a fun game really quick. We talked a lot about phishing. These are real phishing attempts that Verizon has collected with our partners. And I want you just to play along at home. You don't have to type anything in the chat. Just think about this as you as I'm going through it. I want you to tell me which one of these Netflix sign-ins, real phishing attempt, is the correct Netflix sign-in. All right. Again, just think in your head. I'll point out why here in a second, why one is real and one is not. And matter of fact, Asher, let's take a look at that real quick, if you don't mind. The one on the left is the real one. The one on the right looks almost identical to it. But that's how tricky these threat actors, bad guys, are getting. The phone number is the same, terms and conditions look real. You need to make sure that you're looking at the URL bar, if there is one, and not clicking sign in, because once that happens, they can steal your passwords. You really need to make sure about that. We have one more for you, just to tease you a little bit here. A lot of us have iPhones. A lot of us sign in via Apple ID. Take a look, just think. We'll give you 10 seconds here. Which one is the real one and which one is a phishing attempt? Again, if you get phished, a lot of bad things could happen, especially from an Apple ID or Microsoft or Google. Those are bad. All right, Ashley, let's take a look at it real quick. The one on the left is the correct one. A few things to look out for these. Again, they're being tricky. First, Apple, this was pointed out to me by Apple. Apple would never cover up their product. The lady in the picture is wearing an Apple Watch. They wouldn't want to cover that up. But everything else almost looks identical. A few tips here is always make sure you're looking at the full URL on your phone. It's smaller, often overlooked, but it would be the incorrect. It wouldn't say apple.com. Sometimes they would put, instead of an L, they'll put a 1. And so it looks like an L, apple.com, or maybe they'll put something in front of it like signin.apple.id.com or something like that. They try to trick you. So anyway, those are little things that I want you to start thinking about from a small business standpoint. There are a lot of things as you start bringing people into your organization. You want to create an acceptable use policy. If you give somebody a tablet because they're going to be out in the field, or if you give someone a cell phone, what can they do with it? You want to make sure, I'm just going to start with number 2 there, make sure that you're setting the criteria of what they can do. A lot of our small businesses say, hey, I don't want to be Big Brother. I give them these devices and they can use whatever they want, but you're really protecting your business. You're not protecting being the Big Brother by giving this stuff out. But what about the customer information that's on your network? That's what you're protecting. A lot of websites out there, gambling websites, or even websites that aren't business related that someone may go to mistakenly. Those could contain malware, which then gets onto the device and then can bleed over to your network, and a lot of bad things there. All right. So the last slide, I believe, is the next one for me. You know what? Before I pass it over to you, Asher, just one thing I'll point out is, from a security standpoint, I mentioned this before, but we do a really good job. Verizon does, my team, to come in and just have a conversation with you about what your security hygiene is, what things that we feel like we could help you with, or at least identify things that would help you protect your business better. So I encourage you to reach out to myself. You have my contact information, or reach out to anybody at Verizon that you know, and we'll make sure that we get that over to you. But anyway, that's the security piece. Asher, I'm going to pass it over to you to take us home here.
Thanks, Tristan. And I'm going to introduce Asher. Asher Kent is a manager, solutions architect with our technical team. And so Asher, over to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. So I'm a manager solutions architect here at Verizon, just like Francisco said. And today we're not going to be speaking about specific solutions that we offer, but I wanted to walk you through the journey of a fictitious business over the years and learn how their communications have changed. And the goal of today's call is to help you identify where you and your business are on this communication journey so that you can more accurately assess your current state and see how new communications technology could potentially impact your revenue generation and customer experience. And here we meet Pat, our hypothetical business owner. Pat has followed the path as things have evolved and has had every phone system and setup that's been thrown their way. And we're going to review these systems step by step and stop along the way to learn more about each one. Depending on what you have today or what your needs are, the value proposition for new technology changes. Sometimes the value is cost related. Sometimes it's about complexity. Sometimes it's about timing, and more we see it's about flexibility or mobility, what we call a decentralized workforce. Now, regardless, the phone system is central to business operations and it's critical. I think you'll all agree that your phone calls are the lifeblood of your business, and that much is true across the board. So let's start our story as I introduce Pat. Pat started an AC repair business from their home in 1987, and almost immediately, customers expressed a need for the service that Pat provided. So they were clicked to get a phone and a line of service for it, so they could publish a number in the phone book and start taking some phone calls. Now, this is the phone that we all know best. Many of us would simply call it a home phone, but in fact, a lot of businesses use them too. While it was possible to have more than one phone, only one person could talk on the phone at any given time. That's because each phone was still connected to the same line of service, that red line that you saw representing a copper wire leading into the building. And yelling, "Hey, get off the phone," was about the only option if you needed to make another phone call. And for a business, that's really problematic, because when things get busy signals start chirping and revenues move to the competitor. Now, there's always pros and cons to every setup as we move through this journey, and we'll stop to discuss them along the way. But let's jump into these. There's not a ton of benefits here, but it's simple and it's familiar, or the most common. And many take the "if it's not broke, don't fix it" attitude. But as we travel on this journey, you'll see that there are better ways. Next, you can buy a phone from anywhere, but if you need a new phone, or if they break one, you can just run down to Walmart or Staples and replace it. Now, we could go on for days about the cons here, but on this first one, we've already discussed that having one POTS analog line may be call waiting at best, results in giving out busy signals and missing business calls all day long. Those on POTS lines are probably already experiencing service issues that are either tied to the weather or even due to lack of maintenance on these lines. And it's important to note here, more than likely that this is not going to get corrected, because the FCC policy that went into effect almost 2 years ago states that landline companies are no longer required to maintain or repair these legacy analog lines. Now, we know there's no extension dialing either, and there's no call routing, and also no auto receptionist capabilities. But let's look at Pat's next step on their journey. Well, despite the challenges, business was booming for Pat, and so much so that the complaints began to roll in. Why is that? Well, because no one wants a busy signal, right? So in 1991, Pat made an investment in a phone system. This upgrade allowed for multiple phones, and for the first time, multiple phone lines, which also required another investment, something called a key system, and a room to put it in. Now, you may have one of these punch down blocks in your IT closet right now. And while it may seem a little bit old, these key systems still exist today. They allow for multiple calls, sure, but it's nothing fancy. If you call in on line 1, you're staying on line 1. And if someone puts you on hold, you can let them, because it's really the only feature that these systems have. And it's very likely that if you don't see value in change, this may be the spot that you find yourself on your journey. But let's take a pass to look a little bit deeper as to what a key system entails. Familiarity, again, follows us with this one, because even though these systems are very old, businesses still hang on to them. They need very minimal maintenance, and they're very easy to use. These are systems that we see where you can pick up a call from any phone. You can easily park and retrieve calls, and everyone's heard that scream, "Hey, pick up on line 2." That's often a key system, as we see here. Now, while it was an easy system to use, we still have a lot of cons. First, very limited features, if non-existent at all. And we again run into limited lines and busy signals once those 3 or 4 lines are being used. Now, these customers will see the same service issues we saw previously due to those analog lines in the ground. Also, Businesses lose their identity when dialing out from other lines because it displays their line 2 or line 3 number instead of the main business number. Oh, and those lines 1, 2, 3, and 4 all have a per line charge that is rising and will probably continue to go up. Lastly, a huge con with this system is that it's really obsolete and there's very few options for repairing or replacing parts. Updating from a key system allows for much more flexibility, allowing you to do more with less, as we'll see. Now, by 1997, Pat was the best shop in town, and they were finally able to manage the entire business. And that meant construction, which in turn removed the POTS line, demolished the building, and sent that key system to the junkyard. And when construction was complete, the time was right for a new phone system. But this time, Pat got fancy. It required them to purchase a shiny new PBX, that big box in the closet that acts as the phone's brain system. And it was very expensive. Pat spent thousands of dollars on it, a one-time cost, but it was well worth it for them. It also still required a monthly bill, this time for a new type of connection called a PRI, which could now support 23 concurrent calls. So again, totally worth it. No more busy signals. Oh, and back in 1997, when they called to set up service, they had something new to offer, something called the internet. They bought that too. I wasn't too sure what it was going to be used for, but more on that later. Now, Pat moved up in the world, certainly. He got fancy, like 1980s fancy. And this time, Pat picked up a ton of pros over the next type of thing that we're going to discuss. Now, while these PRI connections are still in service, the costs have slowly climbed, and the PBX, that brain unit in the closet, are probably aging, becoming problematic. But thank goodness he made that change, because Pat's team can finally take more than 3 to 4 calls at the same time without yelling at someone to get off the phone or stop using the fax machine. With this PRI connection, they can have up to 23 active calls, and they might even have picked up some extension dialing. But guess what? Those internal calls from employees to employees also counted towards that 23 number. Now, it is scalable, meaning they can add additional phones if they need to. And they also picked up the ability to use features like hunt groups, also known as calling groups, auto attendance, call forwarding, intercom.
Asher, I'm sorry to interrupt. We just saw a message that we have less than 1 minute. So I just wanted to thank everyone for joining today's session.
Good morning. My name is Robert Springer. I'm the Vendor and Supplier Diversity Specialist at the BPDA. The session that you're a part of right now is entitled Unlocking Opportunities with the BPDA and Unlocking Opportunities with the Builders of Color Coalition. So in terms of the presentation from the BPDA, I will be joined by my colleagues, Laura Melli, the Deputy Director of Real Estate Administration, Dolores Dominguez-Fazio, Senior Project Manager, Capital Construction, and from the Boston Local Development Corporation, we will be joined by Gisela Soriano. So who is the BPDA? The BPDA plans and guides growth within the city of Boston, creating opportunities for everyone to live, work, and connect. The BPDA is a distinct entity from the city of Boston. That's one thing that folks may not necessarily know of. They may be familiar with the BPDA in the regulatory realm or in the planning, but at the same time, over the last 5 years, the BPDA has spent $10 million annually in publicly procured services. Most of these dollars are spent by the BPDA's planning, real estate, and IT departments. And over the next 24 months, the BPDA expects to spend anywhere from $11 to $23 million in goods and services. As I said before, these opportunities would be available for folks in the planning realm, IT, facilities, operations, maintenance services, construction. And if you're interested in finding out more about these opportunities, please go to this link here, bostonplans.org/workwithus/procurement/buying plan. You're able to see exactly, right now we're showing 55 opportunities, totaling anywhere from 11 to 22.9 million. You can go to that page. You can access that information in real time. We are going to be updating that info on a quarterly basis. So if you're a business owner, if you deal in public works, vertical and building construction, consulting for design and engineering, or other goods and services, please go to that page, check it out, and see if there are opportunities coming up that would be a good fit for you and your business. So general suggestions for potential vendors. The first step in this process will be, I'll ask you to go to the BPDA's newsletter sign up at bostonplans.org about us/get involved. And you'll be, once you sign up there, you'll be notified of any RFPs, RFQs, and bids as they come up. Also suggest that you have spoken about the buying plan. And in terms of other questions, you can reach out to our Chief Procurement Officer at bpda.cpo@boston.gov for additional information, or you can go to our procurement webpage. In general, if you're applying to an RFP or a bid, pay attention to all the documents, review them in detail, pay special attention to the form for bidder qualifications, prepare stuff well in advance, because one of the things about the public procurement process would be if you've submitted something even 1 minute late, it wouldn't be considered. And another thing, if you're going through the process, if you aren't selected for a contract opportunity, reach back out to us, get a debrief, and understand, okay, what kind of feedback, get some feedback from us on things you may have done differently to improve your chance. And hopefully next go around, you'll be awarded a contract opportunity. So that's the general overview of our 24-month buying plan and who the BPDA is. I'm now handing this off to my colleague, Laura Melli, the Deputy Director of Real Estate Administration.
What the community has determined, being used for what the community has determined is most needed. So we have a dispositions team, and they issue requests for proposals to find developers and organizations that are best suited to develop this land. They spend a lot of time working with community groups beforehand to make sure that they're really articulating, should this site be affordable housing? Should it remain as open space? So that is another way that you can get involved with the BPDA through those community processes. Once the dispositions team has designated a developer to handle a particular parcel, our leasing team negotiates a lease with them. We tend to do decades-long 70 or 90-year leases rather than selling the property, so that we can make sure all of those commitments that I mentioned, whether it's affordable housing or what have you, that those are upheld. Our leasing team does also lease some properties directly, which I'll talk about a little bit more later in this presentation. And then I myself am the deputy director of the 5th team, the administration team, which supports all the others with things like contracts and vendor management and procurement and budgeting. So if we jump to our next slide, you'll see some more specific stats about the portfolio of land that I mentioned. In order to take care of all this property, we have a few different types of contracts. We have recurring services, typically for our operations team, and those contracts typically have a 3-year term. We also have 2 large outside management contracts, one for property management at the China Trade Center located in Chinatown, and the other for parking management of our parking assets, which are spread throughout the city. We also have, we engage with folks for specialized consulting services for specific projects. And as I mentioned, we also have a number of construction projects. So we have both design and construction contracts for buildings, roadways, maritime infrastructure, environmental remediation, and several other categories of work. So I know everyone is probably already signed up for the newsletter since Robert just mentioned it. If you sign up for that newsletter, you'll hear soon about an event that we're doing on the December 10th. This is in one of the specific areas that I just mentioned, environmental remediation. The BPDA, in conjunction with the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, will hold an Engage and Connect event on December 10th in the morning, and we'll go into great detail on an opportunity at a parcel that we call P3. It's a very large, it's one of our largest pieces of land that's still available for development. It's right in the heart of Roxbury, so it's an incredible opportunity. So we are looking for not only a development team to develop the parcel, that RFP is already live, but we're also soon going to be looking for folks to help us with the environmental remediation prior to development. So that just gives you a sense of where some of this money goes that you can see on the screen. But moving to the next slide, here's a visual representation of our portfolio. So you can see, while it is a large number of properties, they're very scattered. And what that means is we have opportunities of many different sizes, which I think is really exciting. There's a particular firm, minority owned, located in Roxbury, that we met at an outreach event just like this one. We worked with them on a few small projects, that would come up from time to time, but we just contracted with them for a multi-year grass cutting services contract for properties spread all across the city. We're working with another diverse minority owned business enterprise right now to go through the bonding process for the first time and to try to help guide them through that and build up their capacity. So we're really excited about the different sizes and types and locations of opportunities that we have. And I will say again that in addition to contracting directly with folks and making sure that we are building up the capacity of vendors as our direct partners, there's many other policy goals that we try to advance through our work and many other ways that we try to support folks. For example, you can see on the right-hand side, one of our largest properties is the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park in the South Boston Seaport. And our goal with, as we oversee development in the Marine Park, is to preserve good industrial jobs in Boston. And we also lease space directly at one building in the Marine Park. It's called 12 Channel Street. So if you're a tenant looking for some space, 12 Channel Street might be interesting. We also have a great mix of nonprofits, community organizations, schools, state agencies, businesses in one of the other buildings that we own and manage directly, which is the China Trade Center that I mentioned in Chinatown. So if you're looking for space, that's another way that we might be able to help. And as we partner with developers, we often need to kick the tires on their proposals. And so that's when we hire those very specific consultants that I mentioned. Our land disposition team has partnered with folks such as the Builders of Color Coalition, who are here today, also the Citizens Housing and Planning Association, to bring folks in to do, for example, an analysis of a proposal for affordable housing to make sure that it's financially feasible. So those are just a few examples of our portfolio and the types of partnerships we have. I'll show you one last jewel of our portfolio on the next page. This is a picture of Shipyard Park at the Charlestown Navy Yard, and you can just see how gorgeous it is. We really invest a lot in the historic Charlestown Navy Yard. Our goal with all of our properties is to take care of them as though we live next door. And we also really want to activate our properties, as I mentioned earlier, get them back out in the community and being used, and make sure that they're welcoming. So you can see that just in this one picture, it brings together a ton of the different functions that I've talked about today from all of our different teams. Our leasing team has negotiated some short-term licenses in this area for things like public art. We also have we just had a request for proposals approved yesterday by the board, so it'll be going out very soon for another license, in this case, for somebody to continue our successful activation model. Over the past few years, there's been a beer and wine garden in this area, and a portion of that revenue has been used to fund free community activities to really bring people in. There's also several upcoming capital projects in this area in the Charlestown Navy Yard, including $1 to $2 million of waterfront repairs, a significant fence repair project, as well as some resiliency planning. And development is underway of a building in this area called Building 108. And the development team has already been chosen, and that was partially because they made very strong commitments to identify investors, sub-consultants, and tradespeople from underrepresented groups. So moving to our last few slides, a little bit of a deeper dive into the opportunities that you'll see on the buying plan that Robert highlighted, so definitely check it out. 3 opportunities are coming up, which we're calling work order contracts. We have a lot of projects that just come up where there's services that we need just as needed, and rather than handling those one by one, we want to set up contracts where we award multiple contracts to multiple vendors across multiple categories of service. That'll allow us to be more thoughtful about our outreach and to hopefully get a really inclusive, diverse group of folks who respond. And it will also hopefully help us streamline some of the contracting and some of the administration to make it easier to partner with us, a little more predictable. So specifically, those 3 programs are for the House Doctor program, which is architecture and engineering, for general maintenance and repair, which is exactly what it sounds like, small construction. And then finally for financial advisory services, which is a little bit of what I spoke about earlier in terms of helping us evaluate proposals from developers, but also several other categories. We also have some really exciting projects coming up, looking for some designers for some maritime projects, as well as for some projects at the China Trade Building and many others. So once you get the newsletter that Robert has told everyone to sign up for, if you click on it, what you'll see is the portal on the right-hand side here. And just one thing to mention is that you won't actually be able to download the procurement document right away. You have to fill out a form to put in your information and register as a plan holder so that we have your contact information and can tell you about any updates or changes. So folks sometimes don't realize that right away. So just be sure to fill out your information and then you'll be able to download the full documentation. And once you download that documentation, I want to talk a little bit about the requirements, but also the opportunities and the goals of our capital construction projects. You'll see that most of the requirements are similar to city or state projects. Typically firms are required to be represented by a principal who has a valid professional license. And if you jump to my last slide, you'll see pictures of some of these types of projects. Some of the other requirements that we have, licensing, I mentioned, if it's a building or vertical construction project over a certain dollar amount, you'll need certification from DCAM, the state agency. So just things to think about ahead of time. We also have to ask for bonding, certain bonds. We also ask for sponsor verification, which I think plays into some of the keynote talk around it's not just about the ownership of a company, but also like what type of company it is and how it supports its employees. So sponsor verification is all about having an apprenticeship program that's going to like bring new folks into the industry and support diverse folks wanting to get into the trades. We also require that our vendors pay a prevailing wage and that they make good faith efforts to hire Boston residents as well as women and minorities. And of course, we have some requirements around insurance. So just key things to look out for and key things to ask us about if you have any questions or if you have any feedback on potential barriers to doing business with us. The last two things I'll mention to just keep in mind is that specific certifications might be needed, but please like dialogue with us about that because we want to find ways to support folks through those processes. And also, you can see these pictures here. These are pretty large projects. There might be opportunities to subcontract. So we'd also love feedback from you about how we can facilitate partnerships between perhaps diverse subcontractors with some general contractors. So with that, I will wrap it up. Thank you once again, and we'll be excited to answer any questions once we come to the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Laura. Coming up next will be Gisela Soriano with the Boston Local Development Corporation. Her piece is especially important because I think one of the obstacles that prevents businesses from growing is access to capital. And she will talk about the programs that the BLDC offers. Also, I'd want to note that Gisela is a 2021 recipient of the Advancing Latino Leaders Award by Amplify Latinx, an annual recognition given to 10 Latinos in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for exemplifying the best in their profession and lifting others as they climb. So without any other delay, here's Gisela.
Thank you very much, Robert. I really appreciate that amazing intro. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. And as an immigrant and Latina, I am grateful to Amplify Latinx and partners and sponsors of Amplify Latinx for providing a platform that allows us to celebrate and support our Latinx business community. So today I'd like to tell you about our small business loan program. On the next slide. Great, thank you. The Boston Local Development Corporation, BLDC, is a nonprofit lender that sits under the umbrella of the Boston Planning and Development Agency. I handle the operations and loan underwriting at BLDC. The mission of the BLDC is to increase employment opportunities for Boston residents by providing loans to small businesses that focus on commercial, industrial, and service companies located in the city of Boston. Over the last 20 years, BLDC has provided over 20 million in small business loans. Loan funds have and are to be used for working capital, equipment, utilities, expansion, and many other business needs. One very important aspect of our loan program is that we also collaborate with Boston's banks to provide financing to Boston businesses. If I could have the next slide, please. So a little bit more about the BLDC. The approval of BLDC's business loans rest on the BLDC's Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees is comprised of immigrant, women, African American, and Asian American individuals from the greater Boston community. This ensures that the choices that the board makes when reaching out to disproportionately affected communities are informed and impactful. On the next slide, I'd like to show you some of our borrowers, some of our recent borrowers. We have here Cilantro Latin Kitchen, which is a Latinx and women-owned restaurant soon to open in Roxbury, conveniently located across from the MBTA crossing station. We also have Row House, another one of our borrowers. Row House is an immigrant and Asian women-owned fitness studio next to Boston's MBTA North Station. And another one of our borrowers is Marvelous Cuts, which is a Black-owned barbershop located in Boston's financial districts. So on the next slide, I'd like to give you an overview, a quick overview of the application process. BLDC lends up to $250,000 to businesses currently located in the city of Boston, or those businesses that are looking to open or relocate to the city of Boston. The loan application process is fairly straightforward. For existing business owners, we ask for current and historical tax returns and financial statements. For new businesses and existing businesses, we request detailed financial projections, and we pull credit reports on all business owners, those who own 20% or more of the business. And of course, here's a list of all the requirements in detail about the loan application documents that we request. One important factor in the loan review process is BLDC's evaluation of the job retention and creation of the business. BLDC puts a lot of focus on how many Boston residents the business currently employs and how many employees the business will retain and hire. Again, this is a very quick overview. Happy to go more into depth. If we can just go to the next slide. Great. So here's Toby, also a recent BLDC borrower. He is with Sana, his business and life partner, and both together are here with Jackson, their beautiful golden retriever. Fun fact, Jackson is Axel Cycle Studios' official security guard. This picture of Jackson in the bottom left is featured on the business website along with his job title. After we informed Toby that the loan for his business was approved, he emailed us this very kind note. The loan from BLDC is going to make it possible for him to move Axel Cycle Studio to a bigger location where he can expand his operations, hire more staff, and increase the number of customers. So on the next slide, I'd like to provide you with my contact information and website. I would love to work with you. Our website is available in English and Spanish. I'll also like to invite you to follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn, as we frequently post important tools and resources for business owners. I'll be dropping off my information in the chat. So now I'd like to pass it back to my colleague, Robert. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Giselle. And coming up next will be Colleen Fonseca, the Executive Director of BCC, with whom the BPDA actually has a partnership with. So it's great to hear about the opportunities in the development sphere, and take it away, Colleen.
Great, thank you so much for that, Robert. And hello, everyone, and welcome to this session. As Robert mentioned, my name is Colleen Fonseca, and I currently serve as the Executive Director of the Builders of Color Coalition. Previous to this role, I worked for Mayor Lorza in Providence, Rhode Island, as his Director of Workforce Development and a Senior Advisor on COVID recovery. So I have a quick presentation just to go through some of the programming that we offer here at the Builders of Color Coalition that I thought might be of interest to folks here today. Can folks see my screen here?
Yep, we can see.
Okay.
Sorry.
Not a problem. Great. So let me just do it once more.
Yep, so we do see it, but it's not in present mode. So it's like not zoomed in, but we do see it.
Great. Thank you so much. Right. So the Builders of Color Coalition, so who are we? So we are a nonprofit organization that was started in 2017, where it's really our mission to get more people of color into commercial real estate. So I will say personally for me, as I was the Director of Workforce Development in Providence, Rhode Island. During the pandemic, I watched the hundreds, if not thousands, of Providence residents that I had helped put to work lose their jobs, shutter their doors for their businesses, and was just really devastated to see that this had all happened to many folks in the community that I had been working with. At the same time, during the pandemic, here locally in Boston, the real estate industry brought in more than $3 billion into the city. So it was very interesting for me to see kind of working on workforce development, putting people to work, and then still seeing profits being made in the real estate space. So I knew I had to kind of do something to help communities of color, especially in the real estate industry, to kind of move ahead. So we are an organization that is really focused on this and how do we get more folks of color into the real estate industry, and for people of color that are already in the industry, how do we help them kind of scale their operations to be bigger and larger and take on larger projects for the future. Today, this organization actually started in our board president's living room. And today we are a 500+ network of people of color all across the greater Boston area. We have a 12-person board, and we actually have Boston's first comprehensive real estate directory of people of color that work in the industry today. So really wanted to talk with you all today specifically about one fellowship program that we're going to be rolling out in January, the end of January, called our Minority Leadership Core Fellowship Program. This is one piece of many different opportunities and fellowship learning opportunities that BCC is going to have available. But for today's audience, just really wanted to tailor it to that program. Before jumping into our core fellowship program, I do want to let you all know that if anyone here is interested and involved in the real estate industry, we do have a jobs board and a bid board. So if you are a subcontractor working in construction or someone who's looking for work and want to kind of expand your opportunities career-wise, if you sign up for our emails and if you send me a chat, I'm happy to send you the direct links. So this is something that we offer to our network to kind of help them advance and kind of get bigger projects as well. And here are just some folks that kind of post with us. This is just an example from this month of organizations and businesses that kind of sent out their job opportunities and bidding opportunities to us to send out to our network. We also have, as I mentioned, a 500+ network, a directory. So here are just some folks that are in our directory today. That mostly are developers or folks that are in the real estate industry. If you are someone who's in the real estate industry and would like to be featured in our real estate directory, lots of our sponsors that are kind of large scale real estate organizations use this directory to find talent and find subcontractors, and also just forge relationships with more people of color in the industry. So if you are someone that's in the industry, please reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat so we can get you included in that directory as well. Now for the fellowship. So our Minority Leadership Core Fellowship Program is a program that actually last night received approval from the Boston Planning and Development Authority as a grant. So we actually just received funding from BPDA to kind of run and administer this program. So we're so thankful for your partnership and ensuring that there's diversity, equity, and inclusion in the industry. So what is this program? This is a program that's going to help folks of color that are developers really understand the professional side of the industry. So understanding what does it take to kind of acquire a parcel of land? What does the bidding process look like? How do you financially manage and kind of do the accounting and back-end documentation for your projects? How do you set up a pro forma and do a financial analysis to see if the project that you want to take on and the property that you want to own is going to be giving you money in the next 3, 5, or 10 years. So this is going to be a 6-month training program that, as I mentioned, that's launching in January, where 10 to 12 development firms will be able to learn all of these topics. Right now, we have instructors from institutions from Harvard, Boston University, MIT, some other folks that are of the Boston Architectural College that are kind of designing curriculums specifically for people of color that are in the real estate industry to help get bigger and larger projects for the future. I'm going to skip over these just for the time's sake. And in terms of our core fellowship program, we are going to be sending out and beginning our interview and application process for this program starting on November 29th, which you can kind of see here. So if you're interested in being part of this program, I'll also just continue to drop my email in the chat. Please send me an email to be included on a pre-registration notification list. So once our application process opens, we'll be able to send you the application so that you can apply. Our application is going to be due on December 15th, and the program starts on January 28th. And here's just a slide with contact information for key folks here at the Builders of Color Coalition. Here's my contact information. Again, I'm Colleen Fonseca, Executive Director for the Builders of Color Coalition. All right, I see some folks dropped in the chat some stuff, so I will get back to you. Thanks so much.
And so if there are any questions at all, I mean, out of curiosity with your program, Colleen, so are there any, do you do any matchmaking, or do you sort of pair people with other developers? And could you talk a little more about that? I'm just actually curious about that, genuinely.
Yeah, so as part of our Minority Developer Core Fellowship Program, we're also going to be running a Real Estate Diversity and Education Fellowship at the same time, which is for larger scale real estate firms that want to do diversity, equity, and inclusion work, but just are like, we don't really know how to do that. Can you help us out in doing it really meaningfully? So folks from both of these fellowships are going to have the opportunity to meet, and they'll have to meet once a month with each other to be able to build a relationship, so that ultimately the hope is that there will be kind of joint contracting opportunities, and our developers that are going through the core fellowship program will have a direct relationship. It begins before an RFP process or something happens with those larger scale development firms, so that by the time like an RFP process or something comes out, there's already some type of established relationship to be ready to go in that instance.
All right, and one other question would be, is the program limited to folks who physically live in Massachusetts or Rhode Island, or?
Sorry to interrupt, but I think if I'm looking at this right, we have 10 seconds, but go. Sorry.
We're focusing on the greater Boston area.
All right, thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed those discussions as much as I did. I took lots of notes. And I'd like to introduce you now to our next presenter, Ana Valdez, Executive President of the Latino Donor Collaborative. She's going to share some insights and some recently published Latino GDP report and other information. Over to you, Ana.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and such an honor to be here yet again this year. I am just thrilled. I don't know about you, but I am a huge fan of Amplify Latinx. I actually believe that there has to be a chapter in every city, because you know the work they do is amazing, and so it's an honor to be here. Thanks to everybody. Yes, today I am here to share a little bit about what we do. And just FYI, for the people that don't know who we are a nonprofit founded by the top Latino business leaders in the country about 10 years ago to create what we call a photograph of the Latino family in the United States. We actually, as you know, we know who we are individually. We know who our families are. We know the sacrifices that our parents, our grandparents have done for us to be here. We know that we do those sacrifices for our kids, But unfortunately, there hasn't been a photograph of our whole family, the whole Latino community in the United States. And the little few photographs that have been are negative, right? We have the shows like Narcos, and they're entertaining, but they really don't show who we are. Nobody in this call probably identifies, right? It is fun. I'm not saying that it's not, but we really don't have a photograph. So what we've done is create a data producing nonprofit that distributes all kinds of information about how we are driving the economy, how we are driving the recovery of every crisis, how we are producing, we're consuming, we're achieving. And so that's what I'm here to do today. And I want you to go to our website, latinodonorcollaborative.org, because all of our information is free. You probably have seen our information cited and used by a lot of people. We're lucky that, newspapers like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and the Washington Post constantly use our information. We are lucky to present in front of the Federal Reserve and in front of the Congress, and both presidential candidates used our information to try to rally people behind them. And again, that's what we do. And so we want you to use it constantly. So one of the reports that we actually like the most, well, actually we like all of our reports, but one of the reports that is very well known is the Latino GDP. Why Latino GDP? Because GDP is the number that talks about who's driving the growth. What's happening in that country? Why is that country a leader? And so what we did is extract the GDP that we're producing in the United States and showed how much we are doing. I'm just going to tell you the numbers. $2.7 trillion in the United States are produced by Latinos. And that number is so big, we need context. And the context is, if we were an economy, if the Latinos in America were an economy by themselves, they would be the 7th largest economy in the world. That is comparable to France. And that is above countries like Brazil and Russia and Italy and Canada. We Latinos inside the United States produce more GDP than the country of Canada. So why is this important? It's important so that you know it. It's important so that you use this number in everything you do outside even this meeting, right? You can use it in your personal business. You can use it in your advocacy. You can use it with your children. They belong to this cohort, and this cohort is really important. Not only are we big in number, but we're also big in the projections to the future. 68.2% of the growth in labor force in this country is brought on by Latinos. And as Professor Pastor said at the beginning of this conference, it's not immigration. Actually, immigration from Latin American countries has been negative in the last 10 years. Our kids that are being born here are producing 68.2% of the growth in labor force. Keep in mind that we are 18.7% of all the population, but we're producing 68.2% of the labor force. And remember, the GDP is basically driven by labor force. Hence the problems we're going through right now, right? Inflation, lack of product, etc. There is not enough labor force. Well, we are providing some, and we could even provide more if we actually went on to change our immigration policy. But without that, we are still producing everything, most of what is needed. Another point data, we grow, our consumption, Latino consumption in the United States grows 123% faster than the non-Latino consumption. Why? Because we have tremendous upward mobility. Our kids are going to college. Our kids are graduating from high school. Our people are founding businesses, like everybody has said in this conference. So we not only are more, but we are more productive and we are better consumers. So why is this picture important? Why is this Latino family in the United States picture important? Because it creates access. Because rather than think of, like, actually, let me take that back. The Latino Donor Collaborative did a perception poll in 2012. Unfortunately, two-thirds of the population in the United States used to think that Latinos were takers. Literally, they describe them as takers. We just did this summer another similar poll with our partners from LCDA, Unidos USA, etc. And we saw a huge change. Now, two-thirds of the population of this country think we're contributors, but we're not done, because they think we are contributors, but they still think that we are associated with crime. They still think we are not completely grounded here. And they still think that most of us are immigrants. I happen to be an immigrant and I'm very proud of it, but the majority of Latinos are not immigrants. So please go to our website, latinodonorcollaborative.org, and download our reports. We have so many. We have a report about why, are we getting or not getting access to capital? How are we contributing to the tech industry? How are we contributing to the recovery after the COVID crisis? We have all that data that will be really helpful for you. It's free. Our job is to produce that, and the more you use that information, the better for us. Last but not least, always remember what we've been speaking about all through this conference: narrative. Why has narrative become the key ingredient of everything that we're doing? Because the way people perceive us is the narrative about us. And the way people perceive us has to do with how our kids are accepted in college, how are we treated at the doctor's office, and also how are we hired, how are we invited to the table, how much input are we having in the big decision making. So media, media, media. Use the power of your purse with media. Support content, both entertainment, news content, printed press that represents us, and more importantly, that represents us well. Please don't forget that the power of your purse is probably one of the most important voices that we have, and we have it today. So with that, thanks so much for having me. An honor to be with this fabulous organization and with each one of you. And my deepest gratitude to Amplify Latinx.
Thank you, Ana, for those incredible insights. And now to our next guest speaker, Elaine Monge, the Chief of Staff of Massachusetts Office of Consumer Affairs and Business Regulation. The floor is yours, Elaine.
Thank you, Michelle. As Michelle mentioned, my name is Elaine Monge, and I work for Undersecretary Edward Pileski at the Office of Consumer Affairs and Business Regulation, also known as OCABRA. I began working with OCABRA in 2015 and have held several positions within the office before becoming Chief of Staff in 2019. As Chief of Staff at OCABRA, I assist in the development and coordination of public policy for the office and its agencies, in addition to coordinating priorities and monitoring agency initiatives. I also manage the day-to-day operations of the office, including recruitment and hiring. Each of the positions I've held within OCABRA help to support the agency's mission to protect and empower consumers across the Commonwealth with outreach, advocacy, and education, while ensuring a fair playing field for Massachusetts businesses our 5 agencies regulate. Before beginning my service at OCABRA, I worked at Metro Credit Union for 12 years, most recently as an Assistant Vice President, Branch Manager 2. I served in the Army National Guard, enlisting when I was 17, which was an experience that definitely molded the person I am today. I currently reside in Revere with my husband, where we are raising 2 biological children and foster children. As a member of the Chelsea Kiwanis Club for the past decade and former board member at Centro Latino and Chelsea Collaborative, I try my best to remain active in the community. I would like to thank Amplify Latinx for the opportunities to speak today amongst a great group of individuals, and also to introduce the next featured speaker. It's my honor to introduce this afternoon's featured speaker, Mark Madrid, the Associate Administrator for the Office of Entrepreneurial Development at the U.S. Small Business Administration, reporting directly to SBA Administrator Isabella Casillas Guzman, the highest ranking Latina on the President's Cabinet. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you, Elaine. Thank you for your service. What a great history that you have. We're fortunate to have you in that position with the Massachusetts Office of Consumer Affairs and Business Regulation. Your office is doing tremendous and important work, and we thank you for your service once again as a veteran. Familia, it is truly an honor to be here with you today at this PowerUp Latinx Business Summit. The last time I was here, so much has changed from the last couple of years. And so I just want to thank you all for your tradition and this important convening, and all of you that are attending on a precious Friday to be here. You've made the right decision. Also, a shout out to Betty Francisco. Thank you for your friendship and your results-driven leadership. And of course, I'm always inspired to hear from Ana Valdez and the power of the Latino GDP. Earlier today, Dr. Pastor spoke about the solidarity economy, and what distinguishes this approach is its focus on addressing widening income inequality while also promoting innovation and economic growth. Equality, leveling the playing field, and economic outcomes embody the results-driven leadership of President Biden cabinet member and United States Small Business Administrator Isabela Casillas Guzman. She believes that in order to promote the growth of small businesses and to build back better, we must do so with a focus on advancing equity and closing resource gaps with those historically left behind, including our Latino and Latina business owners. I believe that this leadership philosophy couldn't come at a more critical time. I'm truly honored to be here, and I said yes automatically, especially considering that mi papa was an entrepreneur. My dad, who I thought would still be with me and our family today, died of COVID-19. I almost lost my mother as well. So when presented with this opportunity on behalf of a Latino entrepreneur, my father, it was just something that I couldn't deny, and it's the most important position that I could see myself fulfilling, frankly, in serving the American public, the U.S. Small business ecosystem that, of course, includes our Latino and Latina business owners across the U.S. and Puerto Rico. I'm also excited that in order to walk the talk, you must implement programming that embodies advancing equity in terms of being more customer-centric and technology-forward, which is the task and the order that Isabel Casillas Guzman, our SBA administrator, charges us. And so I couldn't be more excited that a couple of weeks ago, we announced our grantees for the historic and game-changing Community Navigator Pilot Program as the product of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. This program is what it's designed to do, is to bridge resource gaps and to close them as much as we can of resourcing to the smallest of the small, those small businesses who were left out of pandemic resources, those small businesses that historically have been left behind. So our goal is to resource that woman entrepreneur in New York that recently became a certified owned business. It's our goal to resource that Native American business in Navajo country that wants to market the arrowheads in a digital space. It's about that access to rural entrepreneurs, to broadband, to feel fully immersed and not left behind once again in that area. It's about that female-owned, Black-owned startup business in California, where that opportunity was born out of losing a job from the pandemic. It's about those veteran entrepreneurs all across the US, Puerto Rico, and US territories. A program like this one supporting not only the veteran, but the military family. And of course, how about that Latina entrepreneur that all she wants to do is contribute toward the American economy, hashtag Latina Power. All she wants to do is grow her business, digitize, and wants to hire and retain her employees. And how about you? What about that Latino and or Latina business owner that you know that had to shut down? I know so many of them. My cell phone is full of stories just from being on the ground the last 15 years after a pivot from the banking industry. It's very, very critical and important that we walk the talk, that there's action. And I know this group is all about action. And I send my regards from the administrator herself, because that's what we're looking forward to, is the coalition building that is happening in the Commonwealth, in Massachusetts. This is critical. And we are also bright spotting areas like this one that is doing something about what I spoke of earlier. Advancing equity, closing resource gaps, etc. I'll tell you something. I'm low on sleep, but I'm high on commitment and commitment to this community. And I share that commitment with the warriors at the SBA and of course, leading all the way up to our cabinet member and Administrator Guzman. So before I close here, and I'll do it in the next minute, I just want to share that I invite you, and I submit for your consideration, to go to sba.gov, and make sure you have 5 to 10 minutes of undistracted time. There you'll find what we're currently promoting, and it has an expiration. That's the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, EIDL. So we've made several enhancements. Here's the deal, is that there's an expiration, which is coming up, and it's December 31st, 2021. If you qualify, this could be a lifeline for you on a grant side, which is a supplemental advance, or the loan side, which is a low interest, loan amortized over 30 years, deferred payment of the first payment, no prepayment penalty. So that's a lot of information, but I just pledge your consideration to go to sba.gov. And I'll close by saying thank you for your guidance and resilience. That truly is going to pave the path forward toward our U.S. Recovery. You heard it from Ana Valdez, the 7th largest GDP in the world, and also to building back better. Muchas gracias, familia. Thank you very much. It's an honor to serve you. Have a great rest of the afternoon and summit.
Gracias a ti, Mark. That was very inspiring. Thanks so much. And now we are going to move on to 2 entrepreneurs, Jody Mendoza, who I remember from some time back at Mojitos nightclub when I used to go dancing and was young. And she's now the owner of Winchendon Organic Farms and Mojitos Country Club. And we'll also have Sergio Mendoza, president and founder of We Serve Safely, Inc. Welcome, Jody.
Good afternoon. My name is Jody Mendoza, and I'm here to tell you about how we at Mojitos Country Club navigated our way through the pandemic and some of the challenges that we faced. Mojitos is a large facility with a capacity of nearly 1,000 people inside. It's exactly the kind of venue that you don't want to own when there's a worldwide pandemic due to a respiratory virus. In March of 2020, Governor Baker made the announcement that changed everyone's life and shut everything down. But what I want to talk to you about is how 2021 brought new challenges and how we again had to pivot after the pandemic was supposedly over. Before I get into what happened next, it's worth mentioning I had signed up for the Amplify program to help entrepreneurs. I was connected with Surfside Capital, who helped advise me through those really scary days, and they still advise me today. And as entrepreneurs, we're used to doing everything by ourselves, but we don't need to. Having a support system helps you to bear the weight. So back to spring of 2021, we had been closed since August of 2020, and we were financially depleted. Because the governor's order prohibited us from gathering inside, we were limited to outdoor spaces. And luckily for us, we have a massive outdoor area with a swimming pool, and we decided to double down on the outdoor space. So you may remember supply chain issues weren't on the news then. Only business owners were facing the worst of the shortages and price hikes, and most consumers weren't yet affected. Of course, that's changed. We had to spend twice of what we should have to build this beautiful outdoor space. But then in a surprise move, all of the pandemic restrictions were lifted. So we were stunned and we didn't think it was safe. We weren't, and we had just built this beautiful space. But everyone thought the pandemic was over. So that was the reality that we were working with. And at the same time, we were trying to hire staff. Our goal, because every summer we hire additional staff, our goal is around 40 people. And I was already prepared to offer wages that were 25 to 50% more than what we had ever done before, but no one wanted to work. And what was so surprising was in 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, we had an amazing summer. We were packed every day. Everyone wanted to work. A year later, we transformed the place to be so much prettier. We paid employees more. The pandemic is supposedly over, but no one would work. And ultimately, we ended up getting by with our loyal, longtime Mojitos crew, who shouldered the bulk of the work as we hired and lost a series of temporary helpers. And supply chains were getting progressively worse. To give you some examples, I sat down with food distributors. I was told chicken wings were up 200%. Plastic, 12-ounce plastic cups, just non-existent. And the power dynamic had changed. So before, salespeople were trying to get your business. Now you were lucky to get a response back with like an unapologetic out of stock or delivery won't make it. So what did we do? We got by we cut our hours. our hours of operation, we cut our menu, and we had to tolerate behavior that before would have been grounds for termination. We couldn't book events because we had no staff. And it was really tough to say no to people who wanted to come in with their family after waiting so long. We had the space, but we had no one to wait on them. And it was hard to explain to people why we couldn't give them a Corona because the company had switched to bottling water during the pandemic, or why we have no soda because there is a global CO2 shortage. But it taught me a few things. One, the people who have your back are priceless. And two, when you need help, talk to people, because we all need help sometimes, including entrepreneurs. And three, you won't always have control, and you never know what's going to happen, but that's just part of being an entrepreneur. So again, my name is Jody Mendoza, and this is how I amplify. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sergio Espinoza. I am the founder and president of We Serve Safely. I'm very honored to have the invite to speak today, and I really wanted to talk a little bit about my story and how sometimes a lot of the challenges that we go through has really helped build the path that we have right now, and is actually tends to be our superpower. That adversity and the moments of stress really help foster our growth and success. I'd like to start with a little story about my grandfather, who unfortunately passed away during COVID, and we actually have a memorial for him a year later because the family wasn't able to get together. My grandfather came here from Peru back in the late 70s, and he came here on his own, knew a few people here, and eventually that led him to eventually come back 3 more times before he was able to permanently stay here. You fast forward over to 1991, me, my sister, my dad, and my mother came here to the country through Hartford, Connecticut. We stayed there. I grew up there. I went to school in Providence, Rhode Island. And as I am getting ready to graduate, this is 2008, the Great Recession. So we have a recession happening, and I'm looking for a job. I am in the culinary field. I did food service management. I was trying to slightly pivot over towards event, but guess what? Nobody wants to spend any money on anything that isn't important. So I ended up going back to restaurants. I realized that this is actually what I really, really enjoy. I enjoyed the entertaining part of it. I enjoyed the problem solving, the challenges. I loved the chaos. I always mentioned that it was a controlled chaos, and I felt super, super comfortable in it. I eventually started getting really, really inspired by my dad, who is also an entrepreneur. My father owned a music and dance company of Indian music. And I saw how the pandemic really, really hurt him. And I saw that struggle, and I saw that drive. Eventually, my father overcame and had a thriving business. Eventually ended up opening up a art store. And then, of course, another challenge, which came in that really hit the family. My father was diagnosed with a glioblastoma, brain cancer, and he battled it for a year and a half. And eventually, it really took a big toll on the family. At this point, I was working for a restaurant company, and I just needed a change. After my father passed away, I really wanted to reflect and think about what could I do that would really fulfill me at this moment. I thought about, what my dad had always mentioned. It doesn't really matter what it is I went into, as long as I was happy and as long as I could find some level of fulfillment in it. So I went back into thinking about restaurants. I knew that I loved and enjoyed working in restaurants, but maybe I wasn't really ready to go back into the lifestyle of working the weekends, holidays. So I decided to eventually think about opening up my own business. Little by little, I built put a little brick here, started putting together a website, started networking a little bit. Then eventually another challenge. My company decided to go for a change, and I was laid off. So that was my push. I decided to 100% go into this business, and little by little developed into what we have right now, which is a designed to build food service consulting company. We work with startup entrepreneurs. We work with a lot of people who are on their first restaurants. We talk about, what does it take to run a restaurant? What do you need? What kind of capital? What kind of design layouts? How does a construction project go about? We take care of all the licensing and permitting. And I feel really fulfilled to be able to share that that level of knowledge with a lot of my clients. I always hear on my shoulders my grandfather, who was also an entrepreneur as well, and my dad, telling me, hey, this is, keep sharing that dream, keep empowering other people to be able to follow into a business that is extremely, extremely hard and difficult. Now we come into 2020, another challenge. We have the pandemic. And of course, I'm in the industry that is probably hit the hardest. I am in the food service industry. Of course, I did what I normally do. I, sit down and think. I put together a little storyboard about what we're going to be able to do to be able to survive this pandemic. And I can gladly say that this pandemic for our business was a huge help. I've had the support from many people, including some of them that are here in this chat, Surfside Capital, who helped us out to be able to reimagine and think about our business in many different ways. When I think about all these different struggles, I realized that every single time there was a barrier, some level of stress and adversity, it really was a pathway for me to be able to grow. A lot of these have been lessons, challenges. Again, I love solving these really, really, intense problems. I thrive off of it. So I almost look forward to the next time when we're put up against another obstacle, another barrier, to be able to see how we're going to overcome it. I think about also a story that I saw on YouTube about Rabbi Dr. Abraham Twersky, where he talks about a lobster, how a lobster has a soft, mushy animal, has a rigid shell, but doesn't really, but the shell itself doesn't grow. The way that it grows is actually feels confined, goes into a little rock, and after all that stress and confinement, decides to come out of a shell, and that's the only way it's actually able to grow. I think about that story a lot as I think about myself and my business, and hearing so many other stories of success and triumph over adversity has really been inspiring. Again, my name is Sergio Espinoza, and this is how I amplify.
Gracias, Yuri, and gracias, Sergio. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. Round of applause for all of the outstanding speakers we had this morning. Thank you to our fabulous MC, Michelle Figueroa, our excellent keynote speaker, Dr. Manuel Pastor, our fantastic data presenters, Jennifer Garcia, Mari Francis Rivera, Ana Valdez, Mark Madrid, and our inspiring entrepreneurs and our lively panelists. I also want to thank our co-founders, Betty Francisco and Eneida Roman, our board of directors and the steering committee for this event, and especially our staff at Amplify Latinx and our partners who have lent their hand in making possible this event today. And of course, our generous supporters and sponsors, without whom none of this will be possible. So what next? Join the PowerUp Business Directory and the Amplify Latinx Hub on our website, and connect small businesses to resources and capital. Refer businesses to our programs. Our PowerUp program is taking more businesses. We are doing this in partnership with Surfside Capital. Go to the link on our site and refer as many businesses as possible so we can continue providing technical assistance support. Buy from Latinx-owned businesses. Keep an eye out for our Latinx holiday gift guide that is coming out later this month as you plan for your holiday shopping. Promote supplier diversity. Invest in Latino businesses and founders. Highlight and recommend Latinx entrepreneurs and businesses. Mentor and create growth opportunities. Offer technical assistance support whenever possible. Be an ambassador for change and an ally on this work by supporting our calls to action for advocacy and policy. We must continue raising our voices to drive financial, social, and capital for entrepreneurs of color. Let's continue changing our narratives and leveling the playing field. Thank you again for joining us for this collaborative call to action. Remember to follow us on our social media channels and sign up for our newsletter, because that's the way to stay updated with any upcoming events and programs. I want also to close now with a beautiful performance. Please join me in welcoming the Afro-Caribbean band San Simón. And thank you again, everyone. Have an amazing weekend. Feliz Día de Gracias que ya se acerca y muchas bendiciones para todos.